Thank you. Send it to CHKRUG@ISP.edu.
Yeah.
Vote, let's say, under the election portion, but so these are they're gonna put it out into their marketing.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, if you look at the calendar, it's on there.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, FYI. They're like, we can make stuff, and I'm like, okay, excellent, yeah. Yeah, so I was giving a heads up, so then we kind of did it.
Yeah.
And then I was gonna pull it off during the meeting. So I didn't have a conference to do that stuff.
Okay.
But hopefully going forward, I can be like,
Sure, yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that looks awesome, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Pretty much were like, do you want this? And I was like,
Yes.
I'm not gonna say no. So
Yeah.
if you could, that'd be awesome.
Right.
Your bill is up tonight. Well, it's not your bill, but like the bill you worked for months on.
So for public comments, do I go up there? Can I just sit here, or?
You have to go up there, so right when it starts, you have to get up. Like, we're in Pledge of Allegiance and stuff. Creator will say, now it's open for public comments, and you have to stand up and go to the podium.
Okay.
When you use your, speaking privilege, then you use the microphone.
Okay. Can I transfer my speaking privilege to you?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
Oh, unless if you're here, like, are you gonna be here for the?
I might. I don't know.
Okay, I can. Yeah. That you just designate me.
Can I do that before I leave?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hi, Morgan.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I just posted on the story about hopefully getting people to run. So
We need it all.
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Hi, Ludwig. Or what? I did get your email, and that is a big old question mark right now. So I'll get back to you, but there's like not a determination yet. No. Me and Caitlin still need to plan, like, we need to, like, figure out the venue, and then from there we have to figure out which dates they're free. So once I can speak to Caitlin, like, I can let you know probably, like, early next week.
Hi, Chase.
Sorry? It's, like, probably gonna be, like, mid-April.
Of which one?
I don't have the actual Campbell Decker.
Oh, you don't?
Yeah, it's probably gonna be mid-April. It would be my best guess. Probably early April, earlier than later April, but mid-April.
Do you think they'll make it by?
Yeah, probably.
Today?
Hard to say, but
10th?
maybe. Schrader and I have to do the math too. So yeah, I will. As soon as I know, I'll get back
That'd
to
be
you.
impressive. I'll say that. Be impressive.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll. Yes. Yep. I will get back. I'll let you know on that one. Yep. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Okay. Yeah, sounds good. What did we do these past 2 weeks?
Call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. on March 3rd, 2021. We'll start with roll call. If you're here, please say here or present. Atagarla. Advait. Anderson. Bender. Booma. Emery. Fahim. Goff. Gonzalez. Hanyang. Hayes. Hurley. Klaptauskas. Lewis. Lona. Ludwig.
Here.
Mass. Pfeiffer. Rinchie. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Stevens. Weathers. Young. Zastro. We have quorum. Next, we'll move on to Pledge of Allegiance, led by Speaker Ludwig. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Move on to a program. First is Director of Outreach Crab. Oh, or Communications Director Olson. Great.
That's okay. I didn't get the plug-in.
Do we have an adapter to go from an HDMI to a Mac computer for the presentation?
It'll be this. This is the one that was. I can try. Okay, that one will work. Okay. Thank you.
All right. I think we're good to go. So,
Am I good here?
yeah.
Hi everyone. For anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Anna Olson, she, her, hers, and I'm a junior in political science and journalism. And basically, Eliana Crabb was not able to make it tonight, but both of us were supposed to be presenting on Women's Week because she was a very big part of this program with me. But we were very excited that President Fritz and Vice President Schrader were able to give us the ability to put on this under our PR and outreach committees. So we really appreciate that and appreciate all the funding that you were able to provide for all of us and all of the support, especially for anyone that's helping out to be moderators and such. So we're very excited for that program. But yeah, so I think we can go into the presentation whenever that pops up, I guess. We hope this doesn't happen at Women's Week taking too long because we are trying to set up everything with our IT people and such, so we're very fortunate for that and all of that.
Over there.
I do not have any jokes. Does anyone have one?
Huh?
Got a good,
No,
like,
I'm not sure why.
what happened when someone crossed the street? Matthew, you have to have one from last night anyways.
We're fresh out.
You're fresh out.
Fresh out. We used it all up.
But maybe while we're waiting, I can just ask a few questions. So can anyone in this room name any influential women that you learned about in your high school curriculum? Does anyone know a certain one? Awesome, that's good.
Harriet Tubman.
Nice. Anyone else? Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I
So
can say- yeah,
basically,
yeah.
that's kind of
Yeah,
the reasoning for putting on this conference is that a lot of us, I think coming from high school, didn't learn a lot about the influential women that have led us to be in the places that we are today, especially Iowa State University, being able to be strong women within powerful positions and working with men and anyone in general, no matter what gender you identify as. And obviously there's a lot of long way to go, but we wanted to really bring that up through this conference. And so that's basically where we kind of started that, is being able to think, oh, how many high school students are able to name how many influential women? So that's kind of where we started.
Oh, to send it. Okay. Oh, yep.
All right, Anna. So I
can
think we're
just
just going
talk
to
about
forward
it
it
in
to
general.
Senate, and they can follow along. Do you have a
That's perfect.
copy of it?
Oh, yeah, I
Do you
do.
need to reference it? And then we'll get going.
Okay. Oh, I think actually it might be going right now because my screen just went black. Oh,
Oh.
no, it's good. I
Hey,
think.
Great.
Here we go.
Ready to go.
Yay. Thank you so much, though. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you all for putting that on and helping us out with this. But basically, yeah, March 8th through 12th, so that's next week. The Women's Week Conference will be in various rooms within the Memorial Union and also online formats. And then we will go into our speakers and panels. So Gloria Allred was one of the individuals I was very excited for because Gloria Allred has worked on many high-profile cases such as the Harvey Weinstein case and way more. She's an attorney based out of California, and she is an amazing female advocate for those sorts of issues. And so we will be having her coming on Monday, and she will be in the Memorial Union after we have our opening session, which will include a Women's Week video, an address by President Winterseen via online format, and then also a few addresses from President Fritz and also Director of Outreach Crab. So our first panel that will be happening for that day is going to be our Democratic panel. So we wanted to make sure to include some different individuals. For example, Jackie Norris was the former chief of staff to Michelle Obama. And then we also have Beth Wessel-Kroschel, which many of you may be associated with or know of. So we tried to get a lot of different individuals on this panel. And then the second panel of the day will be the Republican panel. So that will include individuals such as Joni Ernst, Megan Jones, Holly Brink, Carrie Cochler, many other women that are also influential within the political sphere. And so then for Tuesday, our speaker of the day will be Karen Gale. She's an FBI victim specialist, and she has worked on many different things. When I was in email correlation with her, she was dealing with some different large events that were happening, such as mass shootings and other such things that were happening. So she has a lot of really important information that she can give to all of us, especially about women within her area in the FBI. And then for that day, we will also have a diversity and inclusion panel, which includes a lot of the awesome Iowa State women and professionals within the Iowa State community. So we're very excited to hear from all of them in a panel setting. Then our third speaker is Dr. Harper. Dr. Harper is a lecturer here at Iowa State University and U.S. Latina Studies faculty lecture series. So she will be talking about subjects along those lines too. Then later that day, we will also be having, let's see, I'm trying to see which one this one. Oh, this one's our diversity and inclusion panel. The other one was our health and violence panel, sorry. Trying to get those not too mixed up. But this is our diversity and inclusion panel, which also features prominent Iowa State faculty and staff. And the other one was our violence and the women's health panel. So those two different ones on Tuesday and Wednesday. And so on Thursday, we will have another Iowa State lecturer that is going to be talking to us about her experience. She's had a lot of different experiences from not only being here in the United States, but abroad. So she is able to talk more about the international perspective of women and how women are treated in other areas rather than just the United States. Then later that night, there's some faces that may not look so familiar. They are IRIS exchange students. IRIS is the Iowa Resource for International Service, which they are a nonprofit and aims that try to get foreign exchange students here in the United States. And those individuals are alumni from there. So Ndinga is originally from Tanzania, and she was able to escape childhood marriage and pursue an education, and then come to the United States, and then also return back to her home country. Valeria was actually jailed for several days because fighting for women's rights in Belarus. And then we also have Dorothy Masnide, which is the lecturer for Iowa State University. So we have a lot of different perspectives on that panel. And then our last speaker of the whole entire event is Dr. Jackson Katz, which this is obviously very different looking than all of our other panels and speakers, but we're very excited because we are hoping to bring in more men into this conference, and anyone's invited to any of these panels, no matter how you identify, but maybe this would be more personable for some of you in order to figure out gender violence and how everyone plays a role in trying to prevent that. So we're very excited for that, and that will also be at our closing event, which will be on Friday. But in addition to that, I think on the next slide potentially, yes, awesome, is the female leadership panel. Morgan Fritz will also be sitting on that too, so we're excited to have one of our student government members on that. So we're excited to hear from a lot of the leadership individuals within Iowa State University in general and hear about their leadership experience and just their overall experience either as a woman, but in their leadership roles. And then that's just a continuation of some of the women. Awesome. And so some additional things that Eliana specifically focused on were the women in business fair. So she has a lot of different organizations coming that will be at the opening session, in which you can come to and learn a lot about the women business vendors within the Ames community and Iowa State as a whole. Then we have our Women's Week session video, which is really cool. So we'll be posting that on social media soon, so definitely check that out. Then we have a SLOSS Center. This individual from the SLOSS Center is speaking at Senate, so they will all be able to come talk to you to get that involved. And then also an access donation drive will be through the Pan-Hellenic community, so we're starting some outreach on that scale. But the drop-off sites will be at Alpha Chi Omega and also Alpha Delta Pi, so if you would like to do that, and then also in the student government office. And then the last thing is Women's Week goodie bags, so those will be out during the opening session of Women's Week. Awesome. And then we just wanted to make sure to attribute to all of the individuals that have helped us with this whole entire event. So we have the CAT Center, the SLOSS Center, Women and Gender Studies, Office of Admissions, Memorial Union, Lecture Series, Student Government, Vice President of Student Affairs, Toya K. Younger, because she was very helpful in this whole process with us and working with us. So we really appreciate, especially Student Government, for helping us fund some of these events. And we really hope that you all can come and influence others too, because we think it'll be a very fun event. And yeah, we hope to see you there. And also sign up for tabling. Eliana always wants me to do that for the student government portion of this conference and all of that. So you can find that on the MIS. Thank you.
Great, so we'll move on to open forum. Open forum is a time for discussion for issues relevant to students. So if you have something to say, please approach the lectern and state your name and the college of your primary major, or maybe your role in student government too.
Thank you. So I'm Ross Opie. I'm the election commissioner. I just wanted to make a quick announcement about the current election. So as of today, we have received 13 statement of intents, and we have 36 allocated seats. So as you can see, that's pretty underwhelming and a lot lower than what we were hoping for, needless to say. So if any of you are considering running in this election, get me your statement of intent if you haven't already. That's due March 9th. And then there's a required info session, which is tomorrow at 7 p.m. That's our last scheduled info session. But I've talked to a few people now where they just absolutely can't make it. So we're at the point where if that applies to you, if you just can't make it tomorrow night, reach out to me and we'll set up a time where like you're available and I'm available, and we'll just basically do like a one-on-one info session, or another member of the election commission will. But we're just to the point where if anyone wants to run, we want to make sure that they're eligible to do so. So we're willing to, meet every day one-on-one with a candidate if that's what it takes to make sure they're good to go. So, yeah, that's all I had. Send me your statement of intents. If you know anyone that wants to run, tell them. But, yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ross. Are there any further comments for open forum? And seeing none, we'll move on to adopting the agenda. Are there any amendments or corrections to tonight's agenda? Speaker Ludwig.
Yeah, I move to strike 2020-3-090 seating a Freddie Court senator.
There's been a motion to strike 090 SD seating a Freddie Court senator. There was a second. Is there any objection to striking this from the agenda? Okay, then seeing none. That bill has been struck. Speaker Ludwig.
Yep. I move to add 2020-3-087 SC, confirming a nominee for Attorney General to the top of general orders.
There's been a motion to move the bill 2020-3-087 SC, confirming an Attorney General to the top of general orders. There is a second. Is there any objection? Seeing none, that bill has been moved in the agenda. Speaker Ludwig.
I yield.
Senator Advait.
I move to add 2020-3-068Y to the bottom of new business.
Okay. There's been a motion to add 2020-3-068Y to the bottom of new business. What's the title on that bill?
EXCOMP, XComp. I forget what the, just give me a second. Expand. Just go with EXCOMP, that's it.
Okay, the bill is called EXCOMP,
Yep, that's the,
and there's been a motion to add it to the bottom of new business. There was a second. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the bill has been added. Do you yield? Are there any further corrections or amendments to tonight's agenda?
Move to approve tonight's agenda.
There's been a motion to approve and a second. Any objections? Seeing none, the agenda has been approved. Move on to the approval of minutes from last week's, or 2 weeks ago's meeting.
adopt the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, so there's been a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any objections? All right, then seeing none, the minutes have been approved from last meeting. We'll go on to committee reports. First is rules with Speaker Ludwig.
Okay, Rules Committee saw the Land Acknowledgement and Student Government Bill. We sent that favorably after a brief discussion, and we saw in advance the reducing quorum for Senate constitutional amendment so that we could have that debate tonight. We also sent that one favorably.
Questions for the speaker? Seeing none, we'll go to Finance Committee with Finance Director Class.
Yeah, I just sent out the report from the classroom. Annuals are happening. Tonight we're seeing Rodeo Club. They're over there. Hey. That is something that they used to do through annuals, but we're transitioning it into the events account because it fits that account better. And it just different pots of money, but moving it around to make sure the annuals budget is, gets to zero. So the annuals are happening right now. All the hearings are going on. We have one more day of hearings on Thursday night from 4 to 10. And then we have budget balancing on Saturday. As it currently stands, we have to cut about $71,000 still from the budget. So we have like 18 more clubs we're seeing on Thursday, and then budget balancing is going to be a conversation. It'll be really fun. We're coming in on Saturday, and we're going to be in the Pioneer Room, and it'll be great. Compromise, working together. It'll be fun. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in finance. A lot of people in cabinet have projects going on, like Women's Week. Director Perk has some stuff going on with diversity and inclusion. I'm on the back end of all of that stuff. So Green Initiatives had a thing passed last week that I talked about in the update. If you have questions, Jennifer Seth, Director of Sustainability, can talk about those. Yeah, and then we had stand-up last night. I guess I could talk about that later. I'll talk about it later. It's fine. Goodbye.
Are there any questions for Finance Committee? We'll go to PR with Director Olson.
We're good. There we go. It wasn't working. Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Awesome. Okay, so Women's Week obviously went over all of that, and so I won't bore you all too much with even more information on that. But if you're interested in helping us pack a bunch of goodie bags, feel free to let me know, because we'll be doing that all weekend. So if anyone's interested in helping us out with that, we can make it a fun little party in the StuGov office. But then also we are working on getting parking tickets for our panelists for the leadership panel. Along with that, we are working on the access drive with the sorority and fraternities, and we are also working on the Election Commission food truck event, and also just general Election Commission updates. They made an awesome video the other day, so check that out on our story. It was pretty great. And then also just working on some more Women's Week opening statements and different things with the panelists. So basically, that's kind of all we've been working on for this week.
Any questions for PR Committee? Then we'll go to Diversity and Inclusion Committee, President Fritz.
Hi, everyone. So Lauren just says that the main thing is that the BIPOC Women Roundtable is tomorrow at 6 p.m., and there still is plenty of time to register for that if anyone or anyone you know is interested in.
They're also making headway with gender neutral bathroom project at Lead Rec, and they're working, with students regarding culture changes and administrative changes regarding racism and bigotry on campus. So that's all. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Diversity and Inclusion Committee? And we'll go to Student Initiatives Committee with Senator Advait.
All right. Hello, everybody. Student Initiatives had a really productive meeting just a couple hours ago. The Carver statute resolution was sent to Senate favorably with a single amendment. The land acknowledgement resolution was also sent favorably with 2 amendments, I believe. Thanks to the sponsors of both of those resolutions for coming to the meeting and answering our questions. In terms of what we're doing as a committee, we had a meeting with Sophie Young from the Health and Wellness Committee. Director Young, you might know her as. We're also setting up a meeting with Chris Haynes, Director of Student Counseling, to talk about mental health resources on campus, the TAL app specifically. So if you have any concerns, any thoughts, if your friends have reached out to you about something in that regard, please bring it up to me or Vice Chair Hayes, and we'll be sure to make sure those reach student counseling. Now, I understand things are slowing down. We're getting to the end of the term, so thank you everyone for your continued engagement. And we're going to have one big last initiative left before the end of the term. That is the Campus Safety Walk. I've been in contact with FP&M, Environmental Health and Safety, ICPD. We're all looking at a late March, early April date right now. And once we do come around to that, highly encourage everybody to just sort of keep that in mind. The more people involved, the more effective these initiatives always are. Just sort of in closing, we discussed potential 3 new initiatives to pick up. One was brought up by Senator Hanyang. It was about centered around talking with diversity and inclusion, STU-orgs such as the Black Student Alliance and so on. Also, Director Crabb, I believe Senator Zastro, Senator Bender, and me are thinking about an umbrella sharing program, which hopefully we should have more details by next week. And also, Senator Fahim reached out about a project with University Village / SUV to have crosswalks across Danes Road because there aren't any right now and it gets really busy there in the morning. So that's a quick overview. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Speaker Ludwig.
Do you have a copy of the amended Washington Carver bill?
The only amendment is adding President Wendy Winterstein's name to the end. So
okay.
Fairly minor.
Are there any further questions for the committee? We go to Civic Engagement Committee with Senator Schulte.
Yeah, so we met last week and this week as well. Some successes. One of our at-larges, Abigail, has been working really hard, and she has contacted the Library 160 instructors. So now whenever you take Library 160, there will be a little blurb in that module about all the resources that Ames Public Library has to offer. We're still working on the Meet the Legislators project, and then we're also working on, hang on, I'm brain farting. We're also working on the collaboration with SHOP. We just got the information about that collaboration today, so we're going to work on that next week, and that's about it.
All right, are there any questions for Civic Engagement Committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to comments from the executive branch with President Fritz.
Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. So I'd first like to start off by thanking Anna and Eliana for all their hard work on Women's Week. They have put in, so many hours. They've connected with people all over campus to make this event a success. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you guys can all attend and really push for people to come to that because it's going to be such a cool event that I hope remains for years to come. Second off, regarding Ross's statements, really push for people to run for Senate. I think my goal today is to text and email 5 people who have either talked to me about student government or who have just shown a general interest. So if there's ever been anyone that's spoken to you or just someone who you think would like to get involved, please reach out to them personally. For some people, that makes a really big difference in making their determination. So that should be a potential goal for this week. And so, regarding Money versus Power stand-up comedy last night, I won't say that either of us won. Matthew's applause was louder, but I think that's pretty subjective. Who's to say on that one, really? But we both did get approached by the stand-up comedy club and try to get recruited. So that's a win in my book. But as far as the meetings for the past couple of weeks,
I had a meeting with Athletics Council just to go over what they're going through right now, some athlete concerns. I did an ISU Foundation speaking event. So the ISU Foundation is well on their way to the $1.5 billion goal in raising money for the endowment. So they're about $50 million away from that. And so, this campaign has really helped students, be able to have a lot of scholarships and afford college. In terms of the Big 12, Iowa State is, for graduating student debt, we're at the lowest end there. So we're doing really, really good in terms of that. And the ISU Foundation is a huge part of how that's possible. So we're very thankful for all the donors that are there. We also had a, Big 12 on the Hill. So with a conference like that, it is a bit difficult to collaborate with schools when it's all virtual. So we're planning on, really ramping it up when we do the Iowa State days with our legislators and the issues that we're focusing on there in the areas of college affordability and mental health. I also had a meeting with the International Student Council regarding some initiatives and concerns that they'd like me to help them work on, and hopefully a bit more communication between our councils in the future. We also had a meeting with President Winterstein and GPSS. Her big announcement there was that, commencement is going to be in person. So Schrader really, really did a lot of work in advocating for that with upper level administration. So big props to Schrader for making sure that student concerns were known there. And I'm really looking forward to in-person graduation and being able to watch that. We also had our student fee committee. So that was Matthew, Schrader, Zach, and I. And we were able to have our final meeting and make our final recommendations. We will share those with you likely next week or soon thereafter, just so you guys can be up to date on what the student fees are going to look like for next year. And finally today, Schrader, Julia Campbell, and I had a meeting with David Barker of the Board of Regents, where we discussed some college affordability initiatives that we can work on in the future. So does anyone have any questions?
Senator Stevens.
Permission to add Senator Hurley to the attendance.
Is there any objection to adding Senator Hurley to the roll? And seeing none, Senator has been added. Are there any questions for the President? Then seeing none, we'll move on to our general bills for the evening. Then external matters, we have 2020-3-057F, funding Rodeo Club, and that was with Senator Pfeiffer. So if you want to do an opening statement.
Yeah, so as you can see, this bill funds the Rodeo Club. They have a rodeo once a year. Lots of people come. Yeah, if you have questions, I think Finance Director Class probably knows more than I do, but I yield.
All right, and then I'll ask if the club maybe would want to give an explanation of the funding request, what your club is, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so hey everybody, my name is Sky Campbell. I'm the current president of the Rodeo Club and the past treasurer. Last year when we put the finances through the general allocations fund, we were asked if we could move it to the events fund because one, we could possibly get more funding, and two, it would make our budget look like we're not in the hole about 14 grand every year. So just like the general rundown, we have buckles for winners that we provide 10, one for each winner of each event that weekend. That weekend we have a total of 3 performances, and if you place in the first 2 performances, you get in the short go, which is the finals basically for that night. Food for that event, this is how much we spent on it last year, and with this year it might look a little different with being at half capacity and all, but we're still asking for the amount because we do have competitors that say they enjoy that part. Livestock feed, our stock contractor brings in livestock and we are responsible for paying for their feed for the weekend. That is how much it costs for the total weekend. For Hanson, we have rental for the Hanson Center. We do get that at the standard rate. We don't get a discount or anything. So we are asking for that as well. Rodeo programs, we do have people that come in and ask for the program for the night and each performance. We do print off programs specifically for each performance. It's not a general thing. Hotels, so we have to pay for hotels for our announcer, our stock contractor, both of our judges, our rodeo clown that comes in with a stock contractor, and all of the stock contractor staff. So that is kind of a hefty bill. Once it comes in after the event, and then we do have our stock contractor, which that's at a discounted rate for our club because he is an alumni of Iowa State. That's why we go through him. So he asked for that. This year, we may have to have a doubleheader because our association, other schools aren't allowing to have rodeos at their establishments or having events at their establishments at the universities. So in that case, that price will go up, but we are asking for this is just for one event for him. Our announcer, which is also an alumni and also gives us a discount, that's his cost for coming. Judges' fees, we have to have 2 judges for each event. The materials for Hanson, each year when trailers come in and they park at the Hanson Center, they ruin the grass around the edges. So we're responsible for replacing that and paying for it as well. Hay for livestock, we're also responsible on top of just the grain that they eat. We're also responsible for paying for all the hay that they have there. And then we have to have an ambulance at every performance. So we don't get that donated. We've asked and they are kind of unwilling to do so, because they spend their time there and they have to pay their employees as well. So that's kind of the rundown of what we're asking for.
Okay, so we'll move into the general debate period for the bill. Senator Zastro.
So for those of you who haven't seen things coming through the events account before, the events account is a special account that we have for events that clubs throw. And so the requests coming through the events account are not bound by priorities and criteria, which is why we're able to fund things like food, things that are being given away like the belt buckles. And so the reason that we integrated this into the events account as opposed to regular annual allocations, this is something that happens later in the academic year, which means that by the time the events account gets filled up, this is something that we don't have to put through the annuals process, which just makes Finance Committee's job a little easier. That's $30,000 that we don't have to find in the budget. So I'm going to read you guys the request or the criteria for something coming from the events account. I think it should be fine. So is this event entertaining or social in nature?
Yes.
Is it open to all students and free of charge for students?
Yes.
Great. So I think that this is definitely something that this account was for. I'll move the Finance Committee amendment.
Okay, Senator Zastro has proposed the Finance Committee amendment and doesn't need a second, so we'll go into debate on it. Senator Zastro.
Question.
There's a call to question.
Second.
And there's a second. Is there any objection to voting now?
UC.
Then we'll do there was a call for unanimous consent. So we will, is there any objection to approving the Finance Committee amendment by unanimous consent? Seeing none, the amendment has been approved. Senator Zastro, back to you on your speaking privilege.
Yeah, so I think this is a really great event. It's really cool that you guys do this. I like your pants. Those are really fun.
Thanks.
I hope that this gets funded. I yield.
Senator Hurley.
Well, I just wanted to tell you, you were the first rodeo that I went to. I'm a city boy from the heart of Boston. We don't have rodeo. It was a great time. Me, my ma, my dad, we all enjoyed it. So I recommend that everyone say yes on this bill. Great group.
Senator Advait.
Thank you so much for coming out. This sounds really cool. I just have 2 really quick questions. Is this open to non-students, and if so, do they have any fees to enter?
Yep, it's open to the general public as well. We do have, we charge admission, and since it's going through the events account, normally students would pay $10, but they're free now. For the general admission, we do have like a weekend wristband that they can buy, which is a cheaper rate. But each general admission is $15 for adults and $5 for kids under the age of 12.
All right, thank you so much. And do you know what the sort of COVID safety policies are in place?
Yeah, so the event will follow all of the university's protocols, so 50% capacity, everybody will be required to wear masks. The NYRA Association, which is the rodeo association we go through, also has requirements. So if you're not competing in the arena, even if you're on your horse outside of the arena, you have to have your mask on until you get into the arena and you participate in your event.
All right, sweet. Thank you so much. This sounds really exciting.
It's been a call to question and a second. Is there any objection? And Senator Pfeiffer, do you want a closing statement? Senator Pfeiffer moves the bill, so we will now move into a roll call vote. Please vote yes, no, or abstain. Atagarla. Advait. Bender. Emery. Fahim. Goff. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Hanyang. Hayes. Hurley. Lona. Ludwig.
Yes.
Mass. Pfeiffer. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Stevens. Weathers. Young. Zastro. Then with a vote of 21 to 0, this funding request passes. So we will now move into general orders within general orders, or internal matters within that general orders, 2020-3-087 SC, confirming a nominee for Attorney General, and that is with Speaker Ludwig.
All right. President Fritz is nominating someone to fill the role of Attorney General. They came to Rules Committee 2 weeks ago now, and we sent them favorably to Senate. If Alex McFadden would like to approach the podium and talk about why they're interested in the role and why they think they'd be good at it, that'd be great.
Hello, my name is Alex McFadden. I'm originally from Lakeville, Minnesota, and I'm currently studying as a mechanical engineer, sophomore. The reason I'm interested in this position is because although that I have been a part of a few Iowa State University clubs because of COVID, I haven't been able to feel part of a community, so I was looking to become a part of another Iowa State community and help you guys out, because I know that you have this new position open. My roommate told me about it, and I became interested in this position as a way to fulfill my desire to be a part of a community and also to serve the Iowa State community. Some things that sorry, I'm just blanking out here. Some ways that I'd be good for this position are that I've already been a part of the robotics club where we have worked closely in a team, working with multiple people in different groups to collaborate and create a battle bot that we could bring to competition. As well as this, I know that it's very important that you have someone who is very individually motivated and is a real go-getter. So I believe that I would be able to fulfill that position and be able to be of real service to the Iowa State student government. Thank you.
All right, we'll move it to general discussion on the bill. Senator Weathers.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for coming and speaking before us. I guess I have a few questions, and I'll speak on my thoughts on your nomination, depending on how you answer. But do you have any relevant experience in civics or debate in general that this position would be heavily focused on?
While I do not have any specific debate or student government knowledge, I am committed to learning about the student debate process as a way to help fulfill the position requirements and also to be of great use to the student government.
Okay. Additionally, are you willing to address any concerns that people in the Senate right now might have regarding your roommate, the person who recommended you to this position, being an associate justice? Are there any concerns of bias in your mind?
I do not have any concerns of bias in my mind. There are many things that I can do, such as separating myself from my roommate, but also I believe that my roommate, Alex Cecil, who's associate justice, is a upstanding person, and I don't believe that he would intentionally try to compromise my position.
Okay. Yeah, I think I was one of the few people in the Rules Committee who opposed your nomination. However, I think some of the concerns I had are ones that can be overcome, and in the interest of extending an olive branch from student government out to the student body in general and being inclusive and trustworthy of new nominees, I will support your nomination, but this will be a difficult position to fill. It's going to require a lot of motivation. I'm confident in your ability to do that, so I will vote yes on your confirmation.
Thank you very much.
Senator Dvait.
Well, thank you so much for coming out again. I would like to note that I did vote yes on the nomination in rules. However, and I really do believe in your ability to take over this position. Considering, we had Senate canceled last week, and so we had an extra week there. I was just wondering if you'd had a chance to look over student government's laws and procedures any more than maybe at the last meeting, because I understand you were a little unprepared then. Just wondering if you had a chance to look into that anymore.
I didn't really get the chance to look into student government, but the bylaws specifically about my position since the last meeting, but I did before look at what was generally expected of me in the bylaws.
Sounds good. And more of a, I guess, fun question at the end. Considering student government is really modeled on the federal government, really, what would you say is your favorite part that relates to, I guess, perhaps especially your position with the federal government and, just civic structures in general?
I would say probably my favorite part is how unbiased that the student government or our actual government is. It really shows through the amount of actual facts, and instead of just hearsay about, oh, this person is such and such, but really it's about the facts and what's really there, and that's what I like about it.
Sweet. Again, as Senator Weather said, this is going to be a hard position to fill. Wish you the best of luck. Call the question.
Okay, so there's been a call to question. There's a second. Is there any objection? Seeing none, Speaker Ludwig, closing statement.
Yeah, I think Alex has shown a lot of initiative for this position, a lot of interest. I know he's excited to get started. I think his drive and commitment will be good, so I will be voting yes. I encourage you all to as well. I yield.
All right, so we're going to go into a placard vote on the nominee. So there's been a call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the nominee by unanimous consent? All right, then seeing none, the nominee has been confirmed to the position of Attorney General. Thanks, Alex. All right, we will now move on to 2020-3-084 SR, supporting the George Washington Carver statue with Senator Weathers.
I will move to adopt the SI committee amendments.
Okay, the SI committee amendments have been moved. We'll wait for it to get reflected onto the screen. I think we're having some trouble opening the document. Well, I think we know what the amendment is. It's to add President Winterstein to the bottom of the bill, so we can go ahead with that. Senator Weathers, you want to debate on the amendment?
No, I don't want to.
All right. Call to question on the amendment. There was a second. Is there any objection? Then there's been a call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to adding President Winterstein to the bottom of the bill by unanimous consent? Seeing none, the committee amendment has been adopted. Senator Weathers.
I got it.
I won't count it against your opening statement time.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, we have a lot to get to tonight, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about this, but it's just putting Iowa State's support behind a broader movement in Iowa right now, which is to replace Mr. Kirkwood's statue down at the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. with George Washington Carver, an African-American who attended Iowa State University. It's a good opportunity to put our support behind something that's meaningful to a lot of people.
All right, so moving to general discussion on the bill. Senator Springer.
Yeah, I just wanted to motion to add Senators Rinchie and Anderson to the roll.
Okay, there's been a motion to add Senators Rinchie and Anderson to the roll. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the senators have been added. Senator Mass.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak in favor of this. I think this is a great idea. Samuel Kirkwood is obviously a great Iowan, and ironically, working down in Des Moines now, I've been able to read a little bit more about him and see some of his quotes around. And I appreciate that a lot. But I think George Washington Carver, obviously, there are lots of states who would love to claim him, and I'm very proud that Iowa State is able to claim him as an alumni. And he's an outstanding person, an outstanding American, and has made outstanding contributions. I also think it's going to be very cool that if we do eventually put his statue in the Capitol as one of the two from Iowa, it'll be him as well as Norman Borlaug, who is also another pioneer within the realm of agriculture and food. So I think that'd be a very cool thing, because obviously within Iowa, we value agriculture and the things that we produce in order to feed the rest of the world a lot. So I think that's very cool. I'm fully in support of this, and I love this idea. So I encourage you all to vote yes. I yield.
Call the question.
call to question. Second, any objection? Seeing none, Senator Weathers moves the bill. We'll go into a voting period. There was a call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the resolution by unanimous consent? Seeing none, the bill is passed. We'll now move on to 2020-3-083SR, Iowa State University Land Acknowledgement with Senator Young.
Yes, thank you. I would motion to accept the SI committee amendments as well.
Okay, so the SI committee amendments have been proposed. And Senator Young, you'll have debate on the amendments when they're reflected on the screen.
And I don't know if we need to necessarily debate the amendments. They are just to correct some of the language in the bottom of the bill.
Point of information, Vice Speaker Gonzalez, do you need a copy shared with you? Oh, great.
Great, okay. So now it's on the screen. Senator Young moves, calls to question. Is there a second? Any objection? Call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the committee amendments by unanimous consent? Seeing none, the amendments have been approved. Senator Young, back to you.
Yeah, so as I spoke on 2 weeks ago, this bill basically asked for the administration to implement the land acknowledgement that they created about a year ago now. And that acknowledgement is in the abbreviated form. It is in the bill if you're curious about it and haven't looked at it yet. And the request to the university is just to have that read before college-wide and university-wide events, which is the actual intention that the university had when creating it. So it was just kind of to ask them to move forward on that intention. And I'll yield.
Move into general debate period on the bill. Senator Mass.
Will Senator Young yield for a question? Yeah. Senator, you mentioned how it was the intention of the university to move forward with that, but I presume they haven't then because we're asking them for that now. Do you know if there's a reason for that or if this is something that they just forgot about or what exactly the deal is there?
So the land acknowledgement was created in February of 2020, and I can assume that some events went down that distracted the university from really prioritizing this. So I think that the purpose of this resolution is simply to get this back on the radar and have them move forward with the intent of the bill. They were quoted in an article as saying that they were interested in having this be something that happened, so I'm assuming that it just got shuffled under some other paperwork in the meantime.
Sure, yep, and certainly my life has changed a lot since February 2020
exactly.
as well. But thank you. So we had a very similar bill last year dealing with land acknowledgement as well, and at the time I voted for it. And that also had to do with putting up a plaque in Parks Library that had land acknowledgement and that sort of thing. So I do think that this is a cool thing that we can do to recognize the indigenous peoples that originally called this land home. And I don't think that this is a bad thing at all. So I'll support the bill. But I do kind of want to, I know this is a different bill, but I wanted to ask you a little bit about what the intent is. Obviously, this bill is dealing with the university doing land acknowledgement, and the other bill would be about Senate doing land acknowledgement. Do you think those things are incredibly closely tied together and necessary that both do them? Because I guess in my mind, obviously I can understand the university, especially since the university was funded based upon the selling of native lands. But I guess in my mind, student government seems a little less connected to that. So can you explain that maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good question, and it brings up a good discussion. So when I wrote this bill with Senator Goff as well, our intention was to both push the university to implement this policy that they've put into place already, or this verbiage. And as it relates to student government, we are an organization that represents the entire student body, and we have a mission and a goal of making this a very inclusive place for all students. And every time we connect and we meet during a student meeting, a student senate meeting, we are on the land of indigenous peoples from years and years ago. So it is really important that during this time that we do also acknowledge that we are representing the entire student body. We want this to be an inclusive place for them where all Indigenous peoples are recognized and their land is as well. So that's the reason for the separation there. And I would be open to hearing your thoughts on it if you have any more.
Sure. Yep. And I have thoughts on that, but perhaps it'd be more germane for me to wait for the next bill to talk about those. So this bill is obviously just encouraging the university to do something we've already asked the university to do. So I'm going to be voting in favor of this bill, and I'll ask my colleagues to do the same.
Call the question.
Just call a question. There's a second. Is there any objection to voting now on the bill? Seeing none, Senator Young, closing statement. Senator Young moves the bill. We'll go into a placard vote on the resolution. There's a call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the? There is an objection. We would do a placard vote. Please raise your placards up for yes, you would like to vote to approve the resolution. And up for no. And up for abstentions. Okay, with a vote of 18-5, this resolution passes. We'll now move on to the next bill, similarly named 2020-3-054Y, Land Acknowledgement in Student Government. Senator Young.
I'm forgetting if there were amendments on this one. Senator Advait, are there? No, okay, never mind. So again, as I spoke about 2 weeks ago, this bill is different than the other one as it is not a resolution, but instead an act to change our bylaws. It would add the reading of the land acknowledgement prior to the start of our Senate meetings following the Pledge of Allegiance. That's pretty much all it's asking. And I'll yield.
All right, we'll go into the general discussion period for the bill. Senator Mass.
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit about this. So I want to first preface this by, I think we can all agree that it's important that we acknowledge the Indigenous peoples and the history that's there. But I don't believe that adding another mandatory thing for Schrader to read quickly at the beginning of a meeting is the best way to do that. We already have rules, for example, that talk about the First Amendment and the student's right to speak before the student body that are required to be read at every meetings. I'm not sure anyone noticed that that hasn't gotten read at several meetings this semester. Now, obviously, I think it's important that we acknowledge this. I'm not sure adding something to the beginning of Senate necessarily increases our welcomingness that much more, especially if we already have things from the wider university that is supporting and acknowledging these things. So I think that's important. Another thing to recognize is I understand that South Dakota has a program where they've calculated the amount of money that they raised in order to form the institution of the University of South Dakota from the selling of indigenous lands. And they've used that same amount of money that they've then put back into a trust fund that they use for a scholarship program for students of indigenous descent. And I think that's a really cool program that really helps students. And I'm just weary of this because I don't feel like this makes as big of a tangible effect in the lives of students as much as we're saying something because we want to say something every meeting. And I'm not sure it actually helps students in a tangible way. So that's why I'm more hesitant about this bill. I don't love the idea of we're just going to read something because we want to show solidarity, but then not actually turning the corner and being able to do that in a tangible way to show we really care as well. I don't want to just be words on a paper. So that's my concerns about the bill, and with that, I'll yield.
Senator Rinchie.
Senator Young, did you have a question you were about to ask there?
I was just going to ask Senator Mass if he was interested in proposing an amendment to the bill that would make the land acknowledgement less of a read out loud situation and more of a we write this on the screen and present it to the student body and they can see that before we start our meetings to make it less of a, I guess, just like a formality and it's something that we're presenting to students who are watching the live stream.
Senator Mass, do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Senator Rinchie, for being our moderator. I guess my comment on that would be, obviously I understand that, and I appreciate you trying to find a helpful amendment that we can agree upon. I'm not sure that necessarily solves the core underlying issue that it is sort of just a formality thing that we do as student government. I don't want us to do something unless we really mean it, And I think increasingly, especially with the large amount of turnover within student government, we have ideas like this where we want to do something and we find this seems like a really simple way to do it. And then in 4 years' time, nobody in student government remembers why exactly we do things or, really care as much about it. And so so that's kind of why I'm not sure that your proposal necessarily fixes my core problems.
Thank you. I wanted to kind of echo, I'm a couple years ago, there was a presidential slate running for student government who brought forward the idea of the tokenization of minorities. And I fear that while this is very well intentioned, that in the long run, it could end up being misconstrued, that someone who, came to a Senate meeting and thought, well, every time we read what happened to this land, so I'm a better person for it. And they don't take it in with the gravity and really understand where this is coming from and what it intends to do. And while that seems kind of silly at first, think about the Pledge of Allegiance, which was originally started by people who were very committed to the United States and said, everyone should say this before every day in school and think about what's happened in America that's gotten us to where we are today. And now it's not integrated into lots of schools. There's lots of questions about its real meaning. And what I don't want to see happen is for us to turn this into like a second Pledge of Allegiance where at first we're all behind it, but at the end of it, people are questioning, is that like, people will question anything. They'll wonder, should I really feel bad about this? Or should we really kind of make it more of a point, Senator Mass talked about something more tangible that really conveys this meaning more so than simply bringing forward impactful words. So I'll yield on that. Thank you.
Senator Hayes.
Yeah, so I am sort of also on the same page as Senator Mass and Renshie. Whereas I don't want to see this just become some sort of routine, especially I see the point of doing it like before like commencements and larger meetings like that are maybe more rare occurrences, but on a weekly basis I don't necessarily think that the student government should be, the student government benefits ourselves or the student body from hearing this necessarily. I do disagree with some of their points. Like I do think that a lot of the symbolic gestures can lead to tangible results. And I do think that if this was something that we wanted to do now, at least let's do it now and maybe not worry about, the detriment it might lead into in the future. Let that be a future problem. But I mean, just even right now, I think I have a problem with it just being a routine thing, similar to how, like Senator Mass was saying, the First Amendment protections that are required to be in every syllabus for every class now. It just seems like it's there and doesn't hold any sort of significance, and students sort of skip over it. And I feel like that's not the way I want the land acknowledgement to be taken.
Senator Advait.
Real quick, lots of things are symbolic. I guess, as Senator Rinchie pointed out, the pledge itself is symbolic. And maybe not this bill, but in the future we can think of bringing back a bill with a very shortened version of this, maybe a sentence. I don't know. That being said, I'm going to call, Mr. President, I called a question and request a division of the body by way of roll call.
Okay, there's been a call to question. Is there a second? Any objection to voting now? There's an objection. Senator Advait, do you withdraw?
Yes.
Senator Advait, you still have your speaking privilege?
Oh, yes, Senator Han Yang, what's up?
What's the reason behind it?
Behind what?
What is the reason behind dividing by roll call instead of by placard for this specific issue?
I actually meant to do that on the last issue as well. I just think it's a good idea for votes to be recorded and people to be able to see how their representatives voted on an issue. I just think that's a good democratic principle.
Okay, so the objection.
I make the motion again.
Okay, is there any objection? Okay, so Senator Young, closing statement.
I really appreciate all of the debate and discussion on this bill. I think that was really great to hear everyone's opinion on it. I will say before we come to a vote that the intention of this is not to be something that becomes mundane or boring. And I think that it is on the student government to make it that way. I think that if we go into this with the attitude that we are just going to read this out loud monotonously and not really think anything of it, that's on us. It's not on the wording of this bill, and it's not on the intent of this bill. We need to bring the passion and the care that we have to this issue, to this statement every time we read it. Maybe that's reading it a different way every time. Maybe that's having someone different read it every time so that we really involve all of the senators. I'm not sure what those details need to be, but I think that this is a step in the right direction. I think that it's making an inclusive environment for people who watch the live streams of this and may be thinking that Senate has seemed pretty divisive recently, but this is a way to make people feel like we not only care about these issues, we want to make an inclusive environment, and we're making small but actionable steps towards that. So while this is a small amendment to our bylaws, I think it causes no harm, and I think that it would only promote and encourage us to really develop upon this initiative to recognize the indigenous peoples of Iowa. And I yield.
Thank you. And since this is a bylaw bill, it was always going to be a roll call vote. So we will do yes, no, or abstain. Atagarla. Advait. Yes. Anderson. No. Bender. Yes. Emery. No. Fahim. Yes. Goff. Yes. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Hanyang. Yes. Hayes. No. Hurley. Lona. Ludwig.
Put me down.
Mass.
No.
Pfeiffer.
No.
Rinchie. No. Schulte. Yep. Springer. Yep. Stenzel.
No.
Stevens.
No.
Weathers. No. Young. Zastro.
Yes.
Hurley.
No.
Ludwig.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So with a vote of 13 to 10, the bill falls short of the 16 votes required to pass and therefore fails. We'll move on to our next bill on the agenda, which is 2020-3-058Y, Judicial Branch Improvements with Senator Mass.
Yeah. So as mentioned before, this is a bill to try and make some improvements and corrections to our judicial bylaws. First, I'm going to move the Rules Committee amendments.
Senator Mass approves or moves the Rules Committee amendments. We are now on debate on the amendments. Senator Mass.
Yeah, so there's a decent amount of red ink from these amendments. This came with discussion with the Election Commission and the Supreme Court just to try and make some clarifications about some of the intent and clarify some wording here. So I'll call the question on the amendments.
I'm going to call the question on the amendments. There's a second. And is there any objection to voting on the amendments? Then we'll do a placard vote. Just call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the Rules Committee amendments by unanimous consent? Seeing none, the amendments have been approved. Senator Mass, still on your opening statement.
Yeah. So one of the key things this addresses is the question of what happens if the Attorney General faces a conflict of interest that prevents them from pursuing a case. We have addressed that by introducing a special counselor section of the bylaws. This is similar to how the federal government deals with issues when similar things happen there. Basically, the idea would be, in that case, the Attorney General will recuse themselves, or the court will be able to recuse the Attorney General if they find a conflict of interest. And then, as a result, the court will be able to appoint someone to be the counselor for just this case, to pursue this case. This is different than language that would actually deal with replacing an Attorney General, so should one resign or not be able to fulfill their duties. So that's a little bit of a distinction there. We additionally have some corrections to just some definitions, corrects the definition of appellate actions in the bylaws, and a couple other things like that. Additionally, one of the things I put in here was working with the director of IT to post all minutes and meetings of the court and publish any decisions of the court. The idea would be if someone is pursuing a Supreme Court case, right now we've got all of the Supreme Court's prior decisions for precedent in our folders in the StuGov office space, but that's not super accessible to someone if they're pursuing a case there. So we want to start moving towards digitizing all these things. Obviously, we've done this over the course of the last year where we've moved to increasingly digitize as many government records as we can. So this just is a bylaw that states the Supreme Court should do the same. So with that, I'll go ahead and yield.
Senator Advait.
Not to take up a lot of time, but I did speak extensively with Treasurer Krug, Chief Justice, just for context, Chief Justice Heasley. A lot of these amendments came out of those discussions, and I believe it is my understanding that we've come to a good compromise, just so everyone knows. Of course, if the Election Commission has something to add, I encourage. Oh yeah, please, go ahead.
Everybody hear me? Yep. Okay. For 9.91, the Election Commission feels that having a senatorial candidate prosecute another senatorial candidate, regardless if they're in the same race, is just not something that we would be comfortable with, having either the Chief Justice or the Election Commissioner choose that. Another thing that I tried to address, but I don't think we've gotten through it in the amendments, is that Election Commission will have to choose, or the Supreme Court will have to choose someone to take over the Attorney General's position in very short notice. And I don't think that this 9.9 addresses that concern. We would have to get it pretty much in 24 hours or less. We'd have to find someone to take over the case, teach them how to do elections, and then be able to prosecute during our meetings. So I don't think that issue has been addressed in this case, and I think this is very pertinent to these amendments. Thank you.
Treasurer Krug, like I've said before, I'm more than happy to help give you like a platform here. So is there an amendment you'd like to propose that I can propose on your behalf, so the body can consider it?
If you press towards the top of the button at the bottom. Yep. Thank you. I would say remove 9.91 and then add language to 9.9 saying that the election commissioner or the Supreme Court justice or chief justice could appoint member of election commission to serve in that position, or just clarify that in 9.9.
I'm going to make those as two separate amendments because they're separate. So the first amendment I'm going to make is to strike 9.9.1 as suggested.
Okay, so there's been an amendment proposed to strike 9.9.1, or that enacted clause that's associated with 9.9.1 from the bill. Is there a second? There is a second. Any objection to consideration? Seeing none, Senator Advait on the amendment specifically.
Right, we talked about this individually, and I personally was not in favor of this. However, I think it is important to give the Election Commission a platform, and Treasurer Krug, I believe you do have your own speaking privileges now, so I would encourage you to speak on this as well, on the discussion. Or if you want to say something right now, go ahead.
No. Well, actually, Election Commissioner Opie was given speaking privileges by Senate, but Senate, in accordance with the Senate bill, Senate passed last fall, Treasurer Krug still does not have speaking privileges.
It's a designee, I think.
Okay, so I suppose you want to designate Treasurer Krug? All right, that counts. Great.
Yeah, that's all I had to say. I'm personally not in favor, but everyone, please consider what the Election Commission has to say. I yield. And before I yield, the reason why we kept this in is because it's fairly difficult to get qualified people to be in this position, as we've seen already. And the idea was student government always has a lot of seniors that are graduating. I hope you will forgive me naming names, but Senator Mass, for example, they're very knowledgeable about the rules. I know they might not personally want to be part of this, but somebody like them next year, who's graduating, has really no horse in the race, or somebody who might be running for a term but is not related to the race at all would be able to. Oh, that was unrelated, actually. Yeah, basically, it was because of the difficulty. I'm just going to yield.
Okay. Senator Han Young.
Okay, this is a question either for Senator Vate or for Treasurer Krug. Is the intent of this amendment to remove the conflict of interest that might happen if you appoint a special counsel like this, or is the point to make it easier to apply for this, or to be filling this special counselor position? I'm a little unclear on it.
Crook, please feel free to jump in if I'm misrepresenting your opinion, but essentially the language in here is to make it easier, but the amendment, which I made on behalf of the Election Commission to strike it, is in their opinion to take out the conflict of interest. Treasurer Crook, could you please flash me a thumbs up? That's okay.
So to the point of this would be to remove any sort of student government like conflict of interest there. So by removing this, don't you actually increase that? I'm a little bit confused onto the ends of this amendment. Yeah, sorry, Treasurer Krug.
So again, the election commissioner or the chief justice would have to find this person in 24 hours or less. We would not know the relationship between senatorial candidates or finding someone, or if they support them or if they're partisan. So by taking this out, it just removes that option to choose someone that wouldn't be biased or unbiased. If that makes sense.
Okay, I'm gonna yield for now.
Senator Mass.
Yeah, I'm going to speak opposed to this amendment. The current language here was reached after extensive discussion in Rules Committee. So originally the language was meant to be that we were going to bar anyone who was going to be in an election or who had endorsed an election in elections, period. And then we had a discussion about how that may make it difficult to, in a time crunch, be able to find a special person to fill in for this case. So then we struck the language altogether, and Senator Zastrow was willing to go so far as to allow anybody in the government to be able to run as long as they weren't running in that particular race. And we had discussion about that as well. Ultimately, we came to this current language because if we're in a case where there's a conflict of interest with the Attorney General, so we absolutely need to find someone quickly, and the particularities of the Election Commission is that their violation process requires 24 hours, so they're limited by 24 hours. The Supreme Court could take longer if they needed to under their procedures. Then anyone who is not running for the same seat or associated with one of those campaigns can fill in as a special counselor. So for example, Senator Han Young, obviously you're familiar with election law because you've been through a few of these. And as long as you're not running for design senator, I don't know, some Senate seat, you could be that special counsel because you're familiar enough and the court could appoint you to that for that one case. This is already a super rare circumstance. This is only going to happen like once in a blue moon where for some reason the Attorney General can't actually pursue this case. So in those rare cases, I would rather not over-hamper us with too many regulations about who can and can't be special counselor other than this one line that says they can't be running for that same seat. Just striking this without replacing it additionally wouldn't do exactly what the Election Commission wants it to do. You'd have to add additional language to that. So I think this amendment is just bad overall. So I'm encouraging people to vote no.
Senator Pfeiffer.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, the Election Commission wants to have it so that if you are running in any race, you cannot be the special counselor. Is that correct, Treasurer Krug? Okay. So I think this amendment as it stands does not achieve that goal because then there's no language prohibiting that. So I think we need to rethink this. Yeah, Senator Zastrow.
So this is a subpoint of 9.9. The end of 9.9 says that all regulations that apply to the Attorney General apply to the special counselor as well. And one of those regulations is that it can't be a person running in a student government election.
Aha. Never mind then. I yield.
Senator Springer. Okay. Senator Zastrow.
Yeah, so I just wanted to touch on what I kind of just touched on, talking to Pfeiffer. So just as a clarification, if we take this out, I'm of the opinion that we generally can trust people who are serving in the positions of Attorney General and Election Commissioner. And so that's why I think we need to give them the opportunity for a wider net of candidates if they're trying to find somebody in a pinch. There isn't always going to be somebody who's familiar enough with the rules where they could prosecute, but also is available within that short period of time and isn't running in an election. So I guess the bar that we're looking for is, when is it a step too far to say that somebody can ever prosecute? I would say if it's in the same race. That's why the current language reflects that, or associated with the campaign. Like Treasurer Krug said, it's going to be really hard to know whether or not somebody isn't associated with a campaign. But if we remove this language, then there's no protection against that. If we do know that they're if they're in an opposing campaign of an interested party. So I think that this is good as it stands. It gives more latitude to the election commissioner and the attorney general to appoint a special counsel, while also restricting associated campaigns as far as we know. I yield.
Speaker Ludwig.
Yeah, I agree with Senator Zastro on a lot of these points. I mean, broadly, this just widens the pool, and I would rather, I guess, have the pool wide, and if the Election Commission or the Chief Justice doesn't want to pick someone from this pool of people, they don't have to. But I think I'd rather have as wide of a pool as we can without, getting to a point where we have compromised people in the process. I think that this goes a long way to achieve that, widens the pool. If the Election Commission or Supreme Court doesn't want to choose anyone with these qualifications, they don't have to. So I am opposed to this amendment.
Senator Edvait.
Yeah, in addition to everything that's been said, the special counsel has to follow all of the rules laid out for the Attorney General, which means all of their actions are open record. All of us can take reference at all the cases. We could all look at what they're doing. And in case, there is blatant misuse, blatant abuse, we have a lot of options at our disposal as a government with checks and balances. So I'm also encouraging everyone to vote no. I yield and call the question.
I'm going to call a question on the amendment. There was a second. Is there any objection to voting on the amendment? And seeing none, we're going to do a placard vote. So please raise your placard up for yes, you like the amendment and would like to strike the line. Okay, and up for no. And up for abstentions. With a vote of 1 to 19 to 3, this amendment fails. If someone could remove Senator Bender from the roll, that would be appreciated. Great. Is there any objection to removing Senator Bender? Seeing none, Senator has been removed. And we are back on Senator Edvait's speaking privilege with 2.5 minutes left on it.
Thank you. Speaker Ludwig, did you get down the second amendment Treasurer Krug wanted made?
That was the one on the second page, correct?
I believe it was the one with Treasurer Krug. Could you please go over the amendment again? The second amendment you wanted?
For 9.9, just clarify that the election commissioner or the chief justice could pick someone from the election commission.
Yeah, I'll make that amendment, sure.
Okay, so Senator Edvait moves the amendment that's on the screen. Is there a second? There's a second. Any objection to consideration? Then Senator Edvait, speaking privilege on this second amendment.
We had a lot of concerns about this. I see a lot of placard. I see Senator Mass's placard up already. I'm sure they're going to talk about what I'm going to talk about, so I'm just going to yield.
Senator Mass?
Yeah, so we had discussion on this. Right now, a member of the court or a member of the election commission could be the special counsel as long as the case is not being argued before that particular body. So if there's a case in the Supreme Court, we can choose someone from the election commission to be special counsel or vice versa. What the election commission wants to do then is to have a member of the election commission be able to be special prosecutor in a case before the election commission. That kind of goes blatantly against what we decided to do in imposing an attorney general statute in the first place, where the attorney general is not going to be a member of the election commission or a member of the Supreme Court. So then I don't think that it's a good thing to allow those particular cases. As we've already said, we're trying to have as broad a pool as possible. This is only going to then prevent the judges in this case or the person running against that person in the case of an election violation. So I'm going to encourage a no vote on this amendment as well.
Senator Pfeiffer.
Yeah, I have to say I agree with Senator Mass. I think if they're already allowed to be the special prosecutor in the Supreme Court as a member of election commission or vice versa, I think that is sufficiently wide enough of a pool. And I definitely don't want to see an election commission member being the special prosecutor in front of election commission. I think that kind of brings us back to where we started, and I just don't think that's the way to go. So I'm going to vote no on this one as well.
Just call a question. There's a second. Any objection to voting? All right, then we're going to do a placard vote. So please raise your placard up for yes, you agree with this amendment. And up for no. All right, and up for abstentions. The vote of 1 to 18 to 3, this amendment fails as well. We're back on the bill as a whole. Senator Advait, it's still your speaking privileges with 1 minute left on it.
Treasurer Kirk, is there anything else, any other amendments you'd like me to propose on your behalf?
No.
All right, that's all I have. Before I yield, this bill is, and I know there's some stuff the Election Commission wanted that hasn't happened, but I still believe we've been able to work collaboratively somewhat. It's sort of the best position of compromise we could have arrived at, so I'm going to encourage everyone to vote yes, and I yield.
Call to question. Second, any objection? Seeing none objection, Senator Mass, closing statement.
I simply move the bill.
Senator Mass moves the question. We'll do yes, no, or abstain. It's a bylaw bill. Adigarla. Advait. Anderson. Emery. Fahim. Goff. Gonzalez.
Abstain.
Hanyang. Hayes. Hurley. Lewis. Oh, sorry, Lewis is on the Lona. Ludwig.
Yes.
Mass. Pfeiffer. Rinchie. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Stevens. Weathers. Young. Zastrow. Vote of 22 to 0, this bylaw bill passes. We'll now move on to the next bill on the agenda, which is 2020-3-055A, approving the asset recommendations with Senator Zastrow.
Yeah, Treasurer Rulli, if you want to come to the mic so you can talk about this. Yeah, so asset is a great program that we do, and Max can talk more about it. The next bill that is on the agenda is approving the contracts for this fiscal year. Yeah. All right. So so just go ahead and talk.
Yeah. So this bill is approving the recommendations that I, along with a group of volunteers from Story County, City of Ames, and United Way of Story County, all basically brainstormed out in the middle of, in the beginning of January. These are all numbers that have been approved. Other funders have already approved these. Last year, we funded a total of $259,000 through asset. This year, we are funding, or recommended to fund, $257,241. So it's a slight increase of about $1,800. Moving this through just makes sure that the agencies or our nonprofits that we fund can assuredly get our funding for next year. And then, yeah.
Cool. I will yield.
Senator Weathers?
Yeah, can somebody direct me to where I can find the following funding recommendations, or just put it on the screen, one of the two?
Hello.
Did you put them in?
This is, actually,
What?
can you yield to me for a second?
I do that.
Okay. Treasurer Rulli, this is just the recommendations, right? The goals that we have?
No, that would be priorities. That's not this. This is actually approving the funding that we did in our work sessions in January, me and the asset process.
Okay.
I know we had a total, I don't know if class had them. I do remember seeing the whole list we had in Finance Committee. I believe the Finance Committee saw that.
Okay.
I'm not sure where that is, though.
I will look again, but I don't remember getting, I got a document with all the contracts. I don't remember getting a document with all the recommendations. So let me go look through my email quick. That's great, but I still don't think I have it.
Mr. President, can I move to postpone this bill until we have those numbers?
You would be in order for that motion.
All right, I move it.
Okay, so there's been a motion to postpone the bill until the totals can be displayed on the screen, and there was a second. Is there any objection to the motion? Okay, then this bill has been postponed, although, okay, and then so we'll just keep going to the next bill.
I will move to postpone the next bill until after this previous bill is voted on.
Okay, there's been a motion to postpone 2020-3-085SA until 2020-3-055A has been discharged. There was a second. Is there any objection? Okay, then that bill is postponed as well. So we will go, Speaker Ludwig, do you?
Yeah, I would move to pick up from the table 2020-3-055A.
Okay, so the motion, there's been a motion to pick it up. There's been a second. Is there any objection to picking the motion up from the table? I assume before I let the vote happen, I will wait until they are on the screen.
Please.
Finance Director class, I would ask that you would be more respectful in your communications to Senate. Thank you. Finance Director class, could you state where the file is in the folders?
If you search recommendations, it will show asset recommendations FY22. It's a PDF.
It is now in the general orders folder for the meeting.
All right, I ask for unanimous request on the motion.
Then I call for UC on picking the bill up from the table. Is there any objection? And seeing none, the bill has been picked up from the table. And I believe Senator Weathers will pick up with your speaking privilege.
I yield.
Senator Bate.
I would like to yield my time to, what's their title?
Treasurer Rulli.
Treasurer Rulli, so they can explain the bill.
Yeah, so essentially, these are all the programs that Iowa State funds through the asset process. They're all really small, and there's a few of them from like each different agency. So you'll see like Salvation Army has a few that we fund. UCC, which is University Community Child Care, has a few that we fund. And those are all services that are like through their program. So you'll see there's a few different like daycares. So there's daycare infant, daycare children, daycare school age, and those are all used to fund their staff and their basically all of their services that they do through that, and the funds can only be used for that. So it's very similar to the annual allocations process. When they're allocated for a program, they have to use it for that program. I will say this year, changes basically from last year. We moved off of NAMI, I believe, for funding the, or MICA, sorry, it was MICA used to fund the dental clinic in Ames. That was already a bill earlier this year that we moved. PHC is now funding that and using that. MICA previously funded the child dental and fluoride varnish. I believe that should be under PHC now. We are holding funds from MICA and moving them over to PHC. And then there's reduced funding from the Volunteer Center. That was a decision made by United Way of Story County. They essentially sequestered most of their funding for the Volunteer Center funding, as we needed pending documentation of the financial stability of their organization. So we removed some funding from there. Otherwise, everything is pretty consistent.
Stu, your speaking privilege.
Thank you so much for that. And I know asset is something that is a little confusing, even for me. Could you please go really briefly to what asset is and sort of with a more focus on what the process was in coming to this particular breakdown of numbers?
Yeah, so asset is analysis of social services and evaluation team. It started in the 80s in Story County area. Basically, it's a service that provides funding from 4 different funders, which is the City of Ames, Story County, United Way of Story County, and then Iowa State Student Government. We basically got kind of similar to how the annual allocations process. We had hearings from each of the different agencies in the first week of January. They had a 20-minute presentation where they discussed any changes in funding, and this year, due to COVID, there were some changes, so that's kind of accounts to why that our total is less than last year. We heard the hearings the first week. Next week, we had all our volunteers through all 4 of the funders basically get together and discuss how much we should fund each program based on their needs and how much service they actually produce. And the way that we have it through asset is we get to easily see the data and see the basically how much they're actually supporting the community, and it's really easy through the asset process. That's why all of these nonprofits are on there, is we get to see how many units they serve, how many people they serve, different demographics, people they serve. So there's a gigantic book that I have that shows like all data of each program that we fund and how much it's serving. So that's kind of where that came from. And our totals are pretty similar from last year. Like I said, the 2 things with PHC, MICA, and the Volunteer Center changed, but otherwise everything is pretty much a slight increase or kind of stays the same from last year. Typically we do a 1 or 2% increase through assets, so that's why the numbers probably are like that.
Thank you so much. This sounds like an amazing program, and I know you and everyone on the asset team have done a lot of hard work in getting to this and making sure our money's going getting as much done as possible. So thank you so much for that. I yield.
Senator Hanyan.
Just like Senator Vate was saying, thanks for coming in, explaining this completely. I remember in years past, we had migrated some of the funding for YWCA from our usual annuals process to asset. I noticed if you go to the asset site and on the document that was just shared, that's reflected now. That's about 43 in asset. Can you remind me and any senators here who don't know about this why that change was made?
Yeah, so last year we moved. YWCA is a student organization on campus. They run a lot of different programs. 4 different programs that we fund. Girls Power and Advocacy Against Discrimination are 2 of the ones that we fund. We had moved them $48,000 last fiscal year, so last year when Lucy was treasurer, that we moved them onto our asset process so that we could more easily see if that they were making changes in the community and doing the programs that they told us they're doing. So that was a large sum that was taken out of annuals that moved on to asset. We funded them $48,000 last year, and part of the reason why it's a decrease is I believe we wanted, we were requesting the YWCA look for more funding sources, as student government is a large portion of their funding. So that's why some of the totals are decreased. I can't go into too much of like how precisely the totals were like decided, but that's part of the reason why that their funding is a little bit lower.
Sounds good. Just wanted to make that information for those who weren't in our meetings last year. I yield.
Senator Weathers.
I'd like to yield to Senator Zastro.
We just need to change on the bill. I'll move to change it from both the times where it says FY 2023 to FY 2022.
Do you accept that as your own friendly amendment?
I would take that as my own friendly amendment.
Great. Any objection to that? All right, then we'll update the years to the correct year.
Thank you, I yield.
Okay.
Call to question?
Second.
Okay, there's been a call to question on this, and there was a second. Is there any objection to voting now? Senator Zastro, closing statement.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I talked, so I'll talk some more. This is one of the coolest things that student government does. This is helping our students in our community in a really tangible way, giving money that can seriously change the lives and enable students to have a successful academic career that they otherwise wouldn't be able to have. This is something that kind of gets ignored by Senate a lot, but the work that Max puts in is really, really significant, and the outcome is really, really important. So thank you from all of Senate for what you've been doing, and I'm really excited for this bill to pass.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll move into a roll call vote. Please vote yes, no, or abstentions. Atagarla. Edvate. Anderson. Emery. Fahim. Goff. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Hanyang. Hayes. Hurley. Lona. Ludwig. Mass. Pfeiffer. Rinchie. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Stevens. Weathers. Young. Zastro. Ludwig. Stevens. Okay, with a vote of 21 to 0 to 1, these asset recommendations pass.
Move to strike Speaker Ludwig from the roll.
What? Sorry, you're both not recognized at the same time. The bill is automatically picked up from the table because your motion was to table it until this bill was discharged. Okay. We will now move on to...
I made a motion to strike Speaker Ludwig from the roll.
There's been a motion to remove Speaker Ludwig from the roll. Is there objection? Seeing none, Speaker has been removed. Yeah, okay. We'll see how long he is. Otherwise, you might need to fill in this chair since he's no longer in attendance. We can wait. We can see. We'll move on to 2020-3-058SA, ratifying the fiscal year 2022 asset contracts. Senator Zastro, you have an opening statement.
Yeah, so this is just ratifying the contracts for the recommendations that just passed. So I would hope that there's no that there's not too much discussion on this. If it would be taken as a friendly amendment, I'm adding a letter E to Mary Greeley Medical Center.
Any objections to that being a friendly amendment? It has been amended.
All. I yield.
Call the question.
There's been a call to question. There was a second. Any objection to voting now? Senator Zastro moves the question. Do a roll call vote. Again, Atagarla. Edvate. Anderson. Emery. Fahim. Goff. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Hanyang. Hayes. Hurley. Lona. Mass. Pfeiffer. Rinchie. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Stevens. Weathers. Young. Zastro. Then, with a vote of 20 to 0 to 0, these contracts are approved.
Thank you.
So we will now move on to special orders within special orders 2020-3088SC, confirming the vice commissioner for the election commission. And that is with Speaker Ludwig. I don't know who the secondary author is. It's Vice Speaker Gonzalez. You can. No.
Just kidding.
There you
No?
go.
Yep. So will the, is Trevor there? There we go. Will you just approach the podium and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Can everyone hear me? Okay, so hi, I'm Trevor. You should recognize my face, hopefully by now. If you didn't know, I'm in the Election Commission. I joined this fall and had the chance to serve as a secretary because we didn't have one at the time. And then here a couple weeks ago when our previous election commissioner stepped down and Ross had to step up into the election commissioner role, this role became vacant. And in my goal in the commission, I wanted to help out more, and I thought this would be a good way to step up and do what I can for the commission. So it's kind of my interest and then my experience in the commission as well.
All right, Trevor, we all know the familiar face, and I think he's really qualified. I guess I'll yield for a question.
Senator Advait.
Move to add Speaker Ludwig to the roll.
Is there any objection to adding Speaker Ludwig back to the roll? Seeing none, Speaker's been added.
Sweet.
Call to question. There was a second. Is there any objection? Seeing none, Speaker Ludwig, do you want to have a closing statement? All right, then Speaker Ludwig moves the bill. I will call for a placard vote. It's called for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the nominee by unanimous consent? Seeing none, the nominee has been approved to the position of Vice Commissioner. So that exhausts the current business for the week. So we will go to new business. Within new business, we have 2020-3-089SR, supporting campus town security cameras, with Speaker Ludwig.
Title? Okay, as I said in the email 2 weeks ago now, I intended to waive first read on this bill, and I still do, so I move to waive first read.
Okay, there's been a motion to waive the requirement the bill be read twice before consideration. There was a second. Is there any objection? Then seeing no objection, that requirement has been waived. Speaker Ludwig, you will have an opening statement on the bill.
Okay, so this is in support of the cameras in Campus Town that Acting Chief Huff came to talk to us about 3 weeks ago now. The Chief Huff reached out to me and President Fritz after that meeting and asked if we would be willing to put forward another resolution in support or in opposition to the cameras. Student government has supported these cameras on 3 previous occasions. The last 2 votes were unanimous. This is just simply the city council looking for some direction on how students feel about this. I figured this was non-controversial enough that we could talk about this fairly quickly and pass it. We've supported this unanimously twice before. There's really no other significant change beyond the, I believe, the provider of the internet, but the city council still wanted another round of approval, so I figured we could have a quick debate and vote on it. So with that, I will yield.
Is that a call to question? There's a second. Any objection? Do you want to close the Speaker Ludwig moves the bill. We will now do a placard vote. There's been a call for unanimous consent on the resolution. Is there any objection to approving the resolution by unanimous consent? Then seeing none, the resolution has been approved. Continuing on in new business, we have 2020-3-066SZ, reducing quorum for Senate constitutional amendment, with Senator Mass.
Title. Yeah, I'm going to move to waive the second read.
There's been a motion to waive the requirement the bill be read twice before consideration. There was a second. Is there any objection to moving the requirement? See none, that requirement has been waived. Senator Mass on an opening statement.
Yep. So as had been sent out to all of you, we're waiving the second read because we're running against time for the elections. I would have rather that we waited a little bit to have more discussion on it, but that's unfortunately how things go when we're running up against an election in 3 weeks. So This bill would reduce quorum for Senate. Overall, our Constitution has a requirement that Senate has to have 2/3 of all seated senators present in order for the Senate to meet. Generally, Robert's Rules of Order would frown upon that. And the reason why is because normally Roberts recommends that only a majority of members be required at meetings. This is the case because ultimately under Robert's rules, the majority rules, but the minority has the right to give input and try and change the majority's mind. So if you have something higher than a majority necessary for quorum, it gives the minority opportunities to prevent the assembly from meeting at all, and therefore the majority can't have its opinion voted on. So this has actually happened before in state legislatures, for example. The Texas Constitution required 2/3 of senators present in their state legislature to vote on stuff. And during a redistricting proposal 10 years ago, all of the Senate Democrats got into vans and drove to Oklahoma so that the Senate couldn't meet to actually pass their redistricting plans. Obviously, I don't expect that there are many quorum-busting strategies taking place in the Senate right now, but I have seen it proposed in the past. My sophomore year, when I was in student government, there was talk about having a special meeting, and enough senators said that they were purposely not going to attend that we couldn't have that special meeting. Now, obviously, that's a tactic that you can use if you're in the minority to try and prevent stuff from getting done, but it's not a very good thing for the assembly as a whole. I'm sure the reason why our Constitution currently requires 2/3 of seated senators to be present is so that we try and get as many voices as possible in the room. I think we should always incentivize that. But I think it's more important that we have the majority requirement so that the majority of students across campus can have their voices heard and have decisions made on their behalf when we're here. So that's why I'm moving to add the bill. I don't want this to be construed as purely a prudential thing. Obviously, we've had problems getting quorum in the last couple weeks. I don't want this to seem just as a response to that, but I think it does kind of show an underlying problem. With 2/3 is a very high bar to meet for meetings like this. It's easier to just have a majority. We already have safeguards in place where senators are intentionally missing meetings, that they can get malfeasances and misfeasances. So I think that should already try and incentivize as many people to be here as they can. But the reality is that, especially with the number of senators that we have right now, it's not hard to have 8 senators gone for tests or meetings or whatever else may be going on in their lives. If we had more members in Senate right now, obviously we'd be running up against quorum issues less often. But I think in general, it's better to have majority rather than 2/3. So that's why I'm proposing this amendment. I'll yield.
Senator Rinchie.
Yeah, first I'd like to propose a friendly amendment to change, in the name of senators, Senator Anderson to Anderson, S-O-N, correct? Perfect. Would you take that as a friendly?
All right, there's a friendly amendment to fix Senator Anderson's name. Are there any objections? Seeing none, name has been fixed.
Less friendly. I guess I'm not as in favor of this right now, and the reason being is that if we would make it a simple majority, let's say that tomorrow I propose a bill to release ravenous wolves on campus, and I convince 1/3 of this room to say, let's have wolves on campus. And we get to have 50% of the senators show up at the next meeting, and 1/3 of the total Senate, which supports my wolves, shows up at the next meeting. They're suddenly 60%, 66, there's math there. It's a majority, percent of the Senate which is present. And what I think can happen is that you could have kind of like the inverse of quorum busting. You could have a minority of students with, an idea that may not be in the best interest of all students come forward in a smaller body and actually win. And while I love what you're getting at, I just don't think that we should open the door to that. So thank you. I yield my time.
Senator Edvait.
Yeah, some not so friendly comments here as well. I understand the concerns. And I was just about to bring out the point about a strategic minority being able to use this. And for me personally, I think we have measures in place. We just need good enforcement of those, non-feasances and stuff if people are skipping a Senate meeting for no good reason. And more importantly, I was just thinking about this in the sense that we as a Senate, we have the power to express student opinion, right? If we bring quorum down to 50% plus 1, effectively that means only 25% plus one of this body can claim to pass resolutions claiming to speak on behalf of all of campus, and I'm not sure I'm too enthralled by that idea. It's bringing down the threshold a little. And another thing, just it's sort of a smaller concern, just something I thought about, is I was brought into student government by a present senator. I had no interest when I came in at first, and I know there's a lot of people that started off like this. However, I was told, and it was made very clear to me, that I had to be present at every meeting that I could physically make it to. I fear, and as I started coming to these meetings, as I was sort of compulsed to come to these meetings, I developed an appreciation and interest in student government. What I fear is people like these are going to be pulled into student government. We're going to keep pulling our friends in, but it's going to become more of a, back burner thing if it's like you don't really have to show up. And again, there's the pre-existing enforcement mechanisms that I guess could be used, but I don't know. It's just opening up a door I'm not really comfortable opening up with. That's all I have to say. I'm going to yield.
Senator Zastro.
Yeah, I'm not super concerned about a minority being able to pass bills that the body as a whole would disagree with, because if people who are in the majority opinion just come to Senate, then they would be able to vote. Also, there are other protections. President can veto bills. So bills, especially some of the things that we would care about most, stuff like funding, that can be vetoed. And if there was that kind of abuse of the system, then the president would be able to stop that. And then lastly, I would just like to emphasize, this is only a recommendation that this gets put to a vote in front of students. This isn't an internal bylaw change, because constitutional amendments need to be approved by the student body during an election. So this might be something where even if you don't think it's a good thing, you could still vote and then advocate against the proposed amendment during the period of the campaign. So I'll vote in favor for this. I don't know. I think it would be a good thing. I definitely understand reservations, though. I yield.
Senator Hurley.
So one thing that I saw that really gave me trouble, it's not with this bill, is when there was a constitutional amendment or whatever it was last election, I couldn't find the real bill. I saw a shorthand description written by the Election Commission. I didn't like that. I like to get the exact wording, and some people have told me that they could find it. I could not. So would that, I guess this is both for you and for Krug, Election Commissioner Krug, would the exact wording of the bill, along with senators, et cetera, be on that website?
So last year's court reform was like 5 pages of bylaw amendments, so that was not feasible on the ballot. Since this is a shorter one, it's most likely that we would be able to fit it on the ballot, word for word.
Okay. I think that.
Okay.
I think that's it. Oh,
Are
no? Okay. So, yeah, that's a big concern is, even if this was 80 pages, I would want this on, and I really hope that Election Commission looks into ensuring that we have the knowledge. It's very important to me. I yield my time.
Senator Stenzel.
Hello. I like that it's going before the body instead of just being decided by us. And I also think that this is one step of many that need to be taken to make student government more efficient and accessible for the average student. I can't make it to every Senate meeting. I have a part-time job. I'm a full-time student. This just makes it a little bit easier. So I will be voting in favor.
Speaker Ludwig.
All right, I have some actually friendly comments. I like this bill. I know that this is something that Senator Mass and myself talked about last year. I think it's just generally better that we allow a majority of people to meet if they can meet. As long as we're meeting that threshold, we are able to deal with most of our legislation. The only thing that we wouldn't be able to vote on at that point is a constitutional amendment and overriding a presidential veto, which I believe at those meetings should be important enough that everyone knows to show up. I'm not worried about this creating an environment where people feel like they're less required to come to Senate. We still have enforcement mechanisms. And I don't think that us having a 2/3 quorum is an intrinsic motivator for people to join student government or join Senate or come to the Senate meetings. I don't think that us lowering it to just a majority is going to make people less interested in coming to these meetings. And if there are concerns about, I guess, a minority pulling a ravenous wolves situation, which Senator Rinchie should tell me where we're keeping our ravenous wolves, I don't find that likely. If it becomes clear that that's going to happen, I think more people would come to the meeting. I think there'd be a lot of interest in that. If important things are happening, people are going to be there, and I think people would be there anyways. All this does is make sure that we can continue to meet if there's a situation where 9 people need to be gone for various reasons, and we can still conduct the business that we've been entrusted to conduct. This is straightforward, it's reasonable. No major legislative body in the world has a 2/3 quorum. The US Congress doesn't have it, the Iowa legislature doesn't have it. Majority is common, it's how you run a government and how you represent people. I don't think I can make it any more simple than that. I really encourage all of you to vote yes on this.
Senator Rinchie.
One final quick question for you, Speaker Ludwig. So you mentioned that in order to overturn a presidential veto, you need 2/3. Is that of all senators? Just double check.
Yes.
Okay. Great. So perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yield.
It's been a call to question. There was a second. Is there any objection to voting now? Senator Mass, the closing statement.
Yeah, so I've given you the basis for the reasoning here. I do think that this is a good change that will genuinely benefit students, in addition to be able to letting us have meetings where otherwise the majority might be able to be kept from having them. I do kind of want to address, I don't think this is a slippery slope that's going to lead to people not showing up. I think if you're not going to show up to Senate, you're already not showing up to Senate. So I don't think the quorum requirement changes that. I just think that keeps the rest of the Senate from being able to do anything. But I do kind of want to address ravenous wolves. I made this comment to Senator Stenzel, but I think Senate considers ravenous wolves would be an amazing headline for the Iowa State Daily. But the reality is that almost all of our legislation gets held up for a week for senators to be able to read it anyway. So if you read through the ledge packet and you see a bill that you really feel strongly about, you're probably going to show up the next week. I know that's happened to me before where I've had other commitments and it's in the evening, so I was going to have to be late to Senate. And then I've read through the agenda and I'm like, oh, I feel really strongly about this. I guess I need to reorder my priorities. It's a real thing. I'm not too concerned about a minority of senators being able, 1/4 of senators being able to make decisions for all of Senate all that often, because most of the time we're well above majority. And if we're at the point where we have exactly 50% plus 1, we should be pretty concerned that we have that poor of attendance at Senate. At that point, we have bigger issues that I think we need to worry about. So with that, I'm just going to move the bill.
Senator Mass moves the bill. Since this is a constitutional amendment, this ironically requires 2/3 of seated senators to vote for, which is 18. So we will do a roll call vote. Atagarla. Advait. Anderson. Yes. Emery. Yes. Fahim. Yes. Goff. Yes. Gonzalez. Yes. Hanyang. Yes. Hayes. Yes. Hurley. Yes. Lona. Yes. Ludwig.
Yes.
Mass. Yes. Pfeiffer. Yes. Rinchie. Yes. Schulte. Yes. Springer. Yes. Stenzel. Yes. Stevens. Yes. Weathers. Yes. Young. Yes. Zastro. Yes. And with a vote of 18 to 2 to 1, this will be placed on the ballot for the students. So we will move on in new business to 2020-3-065Y, reducing quorum for Senate committees with Senator Mass.
Yes, this is a
You got to read the bill first.
title. Yeah, so this is a similar bill. We also have a bylaw requirement that Senate committees require 2/3 of their members to be present to meet. I think that's even more problematic than the Senate being able to meet, because if you're a committee that's planning an event, say, you need to have 2/3 of your members present. So I think that this is a valuable change. We're obviously not running up against the same time block on this one, so I want Rules Committee to be able to consider it this week, so I'm not going to be waiving the second read. With that, I'll yield.
Are there any questions of intent? Senator Rinchie.
Do you intend to address ravenous wolves with this bill?
No.
And seeing no further questions of intent, the bill has been read once and referred to Rules Committee. Move on to 2020-3-059F, funding 2020 Open Educational Resource Recognition Awards with Speaker Ludwig.
Title. Yep. So this is a bill I made for our Director of Academic Affairs. This is something we did last year. We basically found professors who are using OERs in the classroom or promoting them, and we have basically given them awards for doing that. So last year we did, there were 20 professors. This year, I believe it's 28. So this is just kind of a good way to recognize and reward professors who are out there, using resources like this for students and lowering the cost of attending college. So we will see this next week.
Are there any questions of intent for Speaker Ludwig? Then seeing none, the bill has been read once and referred to Finance Committee. Move on to 2020-3-060Y, impeachment corrections with Senator Mass.
Title. So last year, when we did court reform, one of the big changes to our Constitution was the impeachment process. We then had to pass a bylaw amendment to conform with the new constitutional language. And unfortunately, we wrote that bylaw the week before COVID happened. So we had like a 20-page long bylaw bill that we had to shove together really quickly so we could get it passed through Senate going out the door. Almost everything in there was correct. Our impeachment language, though, was a little muddied. The previous process was that Senate would hold the impeachment trial. Our new process is that the Supreme Court holds the impeachment trial. So there was some of that old language that was still left in the bylaws about Rules Committee having hearings in order to determine whether or not a trial was needed. This is just deleting all that language that's no longer necessary. So with that, I'll yield.
Are there any questions of intent? Then seeing none, the bill has been read once and referred to Rules Committee. Move on to 2020-3-061F, KURE carryover request with Senator Zastrow.
Title. So KURE Fest is an annual event and classes gesturing, so I will yield to him.
Yeah, so KRE, so there should be a folder in new business, I think, that says like KRE documents. This one is like a little bit more confusing just because of when we passed it. So this was a bill last year, very similar to what we did with the rodeo. We moved this into the events account from something that they always did in annuals. We passed it as a bill in February of last year, so almost a year ago. We then carried it over. I carried it over from Executive Order number 5, I think, if I'm correct, or 4, from when we went into the pandemic. Obviously, KRE Fest did not happen this year in August because we were still in the pandemic. So they're carrying it over for next year. So we gave them the money once. It's just keeping the money with them. It's just a little bit more confusing. So if you do have questions about it, I provided all those documentations, and like when I sent it to Jamie Barker and COA, that email is in there as well. Yeah, if you have questions about it, it's a little more complicated, but it is very similar. We gave them the money once. We're just keeping the money with them. And I'll yield.
Are there any questions of intent? Seeing none, the bill has been read once and referred to Finance Committee. 2020-3-061F, 062Y Legislative Relations Account Cap with Senator Mass.
Title. Yeah, so if you look in our finances, we have a lot of different accounts. One of them is the legislative relations account, which can only be spent on lobbying efforts on behalf of the government. We haven't used a lot of that money for a long time, and so it just keeps building up in the account every year. So every year, 10 cents of the student fee that we receive goes to this account. So it's building up a lot over time, and we're not spending it at near that rate. So this is going to introduce a cap on the account, where once it goes above 15,000, any extra money in the account automatically goes to special projects where it can be spent on other things. I don't know how much money is currently in the account. Finance director class might be able to tell you, but that's the point of this bill. Do you have it?
Yeah, so there's like $66,000 in this account right now that can only be used towards lobbying. I will say, when I report it on the report from the classroom, I'm reporting the money that we got this year, just so there is a discrepancy there, but it's the money we got this year is what I'm reporting on that, FYI. I yield back to Senator Mass.
Yep. So with that, I'll yield to any questions of intent.
Senator Hurley. Do you have? Okay, so there's been a motion to remove Senators Young and Goff from the roll. Is there any objection? Seeing none, senators have been removed. Are there any questions of intent for Senator Mass? Seeing none, the bill has been read once and referred to Rules Committee. Move on to 2020-3-063F, Student Activities Carryover, or Student Activities Center Carryover Request with the bill's secondary author, Senator Zastro.
Title. Sorry, I didn't tell you about this in advance. I'll move to waive first read of this bill.
There's been a motion to waive the requirement the bill be read twice before consideration. There was a second. Is there any objection to that motion? Then seeing none, that requirement has been waived. Senator Zastro, you have an opening statement.
So these, I'm going to waive the first read on the next two bills as well. If there needs to be discussion, I'm happy to have that, but these are just continuing to give clubs money that we've already allocated to them, and we're not reallocating it to them for next year, which makes annuals a lot easier on us. So I'll yield.
Senator, there's been a call to question. Is there a second? Second. There is a second. Is there any objection? Seeing none, we will move into the voting period. Senator Zastro with a closing statement.
Since this isn't allocating money, do we need to do a roll call vote?
It's coded F, so
All right.
yes.
Yeah. I yield.
All right. Okay, so Senator Zastro moves the bill. And I will do a roll call vote. Please say yes, no, or abstain. Adegarla. Advait. Anderson. Emery. Fahim. Gonzalez. Hanyang. Hayes. Hurley. Lona. Ludwig. Mass. Pfeiffer. Rinchie. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Stevens. Weathers. Young. Oh, sorry, Young's not on the roll. Then Zastro. Miss anybody? And with a vote of 19 to 0, this line item, or this carryover request is approved. Move on within new business to 2020-3-064F, Student Union Board carryover request.
Title.
That is with Senator Zastro.
Excuse me. Move to waive first read.
There's been a motion to waive the 2 readings requirement. There was a second. Is there any objection? And that requirement has been waived. Senator Zastro with an opening statement.
Yeah. Also, I'll just say this is helping us with the annuals. We had to cut $300,000 ish from where we started, and this isn't included in the cut, but this helps us. I'll illustrate this. So this is 600 plus 2,500 plus 2,500 plus 45,000 that we would have to find in the budget if we don't pass this. I yield.
There's been a call to question. There's a second. There was an objection. Does anyone want to withdraw either their objection or their motion? Okay, then no one does, so we will move into a debate period on if we should vote on the bill immediately. Senator Springer, you made the motion.
I think it's pretty straightforward. I don't know why we have to have discussion on it.
Okay, Senator Stenzel calls the question on the secondary motion. Did I hear a second for that? Okay, so since we've already done an objection, this motion cannot be objected to. We will move into a vote to vote. If you would like to vote now on the carryover request, please raise your placard up in the air for yes. And up for no. And up for abstentions. So the ayes have it. So we will move into a vote now. Senator Zastro, you have a closing statement. Senator Zastro moves the bill. Now do a roll call vote. We say yes, no, or abstain. Adegarla. Advait. Anderson. Emery. Fahim. Gonzalez. Hanyang. Hayes. Hurley. Lona. Ludwig. Mass. Pfeiffer. Rinchie. Schulte. Springer. Stenzel. Stevens. Weathers. Young. Oh, sorry, Young's not on the roll. Sorry. Zastro. And Hurley. Then with a vote of 18 to 0 to 1, this carryover request passes as well.
Move to strike Senator Hurley from the roll.
There's been a motion to strike Senator Hurley from the roll. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the senator has been struck. For the information of the body, we are now at 18 senators present, so no one leave the room, or we cannot vote on legislation. Move on to 2020-3-067F, SAC line item transfer with Senator Zastro.
Title. I will not be waiving first read on this one. We have somebody coming next week to talk about this and probably about Student Activity Center in general. So, yeah, I yield.
Are there any questions of intent? Then seeing none, this bill has been read once and referred to Finance Committee. Move on to 2020-3-068Y, XComp with Senator Advait.
All right, so this is a really short bill written at the behest of Vice President Schrader. What it essentially does is the president and the financial director gets a summer scholarship, and now that we do have a winter semester, this just gives them the option to pick either. That's all. Yield.
Are there any questions of intent? Seeing none.
Senator Advait, do you intend to send a copy of this out to all of us since we don't have it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions of intent? Then seeing none, the bill has been read once and referred to Rules Committee. That is it for business today, so we will move into closing announcements. If you have a closing announcement, please raise your placard as we go around the room. Senator Mass.
All right, this is kind of a gripe, but I know we have the motion to take someone off the roll now, and that's a good thing if they leave the meeting like permanently, but we don't have to like take someone off the roll every time they go to the bathroom and come back. It just kind of creates unnecessary clutter in the meeting. So I just ask that senators please refrain from doing that, because once you make the motion, all we can do is object, and that just triggers an automatic quorum call, and no one wants to have to do that. So please just refrain from that unless we're sure that someone like actually is gone and isn't going to be back in 3 minutes. So that's all I ask.
Senator Schulte.
Yeah, so this is just a general plug. I am the president of the Student and Family Outreach Organization, formerly known as the Dean of Students Office Ambassadors, formerly known as Parent Family Weekend. We are currently having our recruitment period right now. So if you're interested in a 5-hour-a-week paying job, we have applications open through the 9th, I believe. It's a really cool, chill job working with the Dean of Students Office. We run a lot of programs. Application materials can be found on our website. I strongly encourage everyone to apply. It's a very great program. Like this morning, I gave a presentation to a class. Tomorrow I'm doing manual labor. So you sort of bounce around to whatever you need to do. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or talk to me after the meeting. Thank you.
Senator Hanyang.
Thanks for the debate tonight, guys, or everybody. Sorry for that. I just have two things off of tonight's discussion. First of all, asset was passed tonight, so I think that some of you get how big of a thing that is, but that's a lot of money all going to social services and names. A lot of the activism in our communities has been around these social services and continuing to fund them. So it's important that we as student government understand where this money goes. And I encourage every single one of you in this room to actually go and visit at least one of the organizations recommended in the bill earlier. The listing's all there. I know YSS and LSI are both organizations that I volunteered for in the past, and those organizations are very appreciative of having students there, as a lot of their people going to them are children. So you're helping set that standard for the Ames community and showing that Iowa State's students and student government is really giving back to them in ways other than financial means. Secondly, I know that with the elections coming up and not having as many people submitting statements of intent, we want to go and share the word out about student government to your friends and other people to run for Senate positions. One word of advice to people who are sharing this is that take questions about the time commitment. We know this year that we've been having problems with quorum. It happens every year because of tests. At some point, maybe we're getting close to that number, and we just want to avoid that. But I think that this year, especially with the pandemic and everything being moved virtually, that the expectation to be here from week to week has changed. And it's been a little bit disappointing for me as a past senator to not see familiar faces and even returning faces from the last year, not see those faces make an effort to be in this room from week to week as much as they have been in the past. And I think that because of the pandemic, that we've lost some of that sense of responsibility. And people need to know when they're running for these positions, even though we want the max amount of people in these seats as possible, that if you're not able to show up from week to week, you don't deserve to be elected. And I think that we need to really examine that if we want to get back off the ground next year and not have these same issues with quorum. With that being said, I would suggest that if you're planning on sharing this with your friends, that you provide them ways to just start thinking about next year. One thing that I did was actually adjusted my class schedule so that I never had a night class on Wednesdays. I take a lot of night classes as a business student, for example, and usually in class Monday and Fridays. I've had the option to do this before so that classes run right up to Senate, but in my experience, it's just never the case. You need this entire afternoon open in order to pay attention to everything. You need this afternoon open in case you haven't read legislation from past packets. And so a lot of the engagement issues that we've been seeing from week to week here do come from setting aside time, not only to be present in this room from week to week, but to be present in your committees and to be present for 2 to 3 hours at least, reading your legislation and reading the things that come through here. I know there's a lot of frustration from people who don't get their emails read about this stuff, and we would just really want to make sure that the senators who are coming in here next year understand the weight of that responsibility a little bit more. And if you need any just questions about what it looked like before the pandemic, where everything was more in person, we had more bills coming through and people were having more initiative for projects, I'd love to help share that. I'm sure that Senator Mass, Vice President Schrader, Speaker Ludwig, all the members of last year's Senate would love to explain that as well. But we want to make sure that the people who are coming here and signing up, which I hope there's a lot of them, that they understand week to week what the time commitment is so that they can best serve students. That's all I got.
Senator Vate. Senator Zastro.
Yeah, I would just like to seriously bump what Han Yang said and tie it into Director of Communications, Ray Olson. You've done a fantastic job, and this is a really great example of what student government can do. For Women's Week, having one of our senators come here, setting up an entire week where you have panelists constantly coming in. This is really the best of student government. Is seeing events like this. And this is what your position as a senator, as a member of student government, gives you the opportunity to do. It gives you the funding sources, the planning resources, to where you can set up events that have wide outreach on campus. And I think that everybody here should really take an account of themselves as to whether or not you're using that position. And if you decide that you're not being the best senator that you can be, do just think about it and change. And look for an initiative that you can tackle. Look for how you can outreach to more students, and that's just a way that everybody in this room can be better. And if we act upon that, then we'll be better as a Senate. President Fritz, if I could talk to you after the meeting. She's not paying attention. That's okay. I want to talk to you after the meeting, just briefly. Great meeting tonight. I appreciate all the discussion. I yield.
Senator Hayes.
Yep, I just want to sort of tag on what has recently been said. I know perhaps I have even been not necessarily the best example of a senator, but I know that, now that, the time is, like, our terms are really running out. So now is the time where if you have an idea or if you've been passionate about something, don't let that passion, fizzle out. Make sure it's burned and it's burning and you're able to act on it now. And I know that, this is something that we should be taking as a priority, especially because we're not just doing it for ourselves. We're doing it on such a representative basis. It's important that, we take the initiative and do the responsibilities and do the things that others are counting on us to do, and even the things that they don't know that they want, but we see fit as important. And yeah, right now, especially Edwin and I have had the conversation about our terms running out, and this is really the time that it's time to step up. And especially if you haven't been in the past, this is really the time to prove that you earned your spot properly.
Great. And maybe to illustrate Senator Mass's point from earlier, Senator Hurley, I can't give you a closing announcement because you're taking off the roll, so someone wants to add you back on quick.
Move to add Senator Hurley to the roll.
Great. Is there any objection? Senator, you're added. Senator Hurley, closing announcement.
Something that I've heard over and over again, I talk with my constituents, I apologize, on a daily basis. And I did my own public approval poll. I talked to 100 students. 9 had a positive view of student government. So many people have told me that it's an elitist organization, that it's a bad group filled with bad people. I don't agree with that. I think that's a little extreme. But we definitely have a big image issue, and that's not going to be fixed just by, passing wacky stuff. We need to pass good stuff all the time. We need to really talk to our constituents. Almost nobody knows who their representative is. That's a massive problem. We need to make ourselves more approachable and more outward facing. I think that we should all have meetings with our constituents. We should maybe open up that senator room to anyone. I'd love to see that. And, we just really have to focus on making it less of an elitist place and more of a working man's, working anyone's place.
Senator Advait.
Sweet. Just a couple things. First, about the abstention thing. Twice today we had a vote with people out of the room. Those are automatic abstentions, right? And given how close some votes are, if someone left for the bathroom, that can absolutely kill bills that are, being tallied out of people that are present on the floor. So we have the flexibility to add them back quickly, as we just did. Maybe I'm missing something here. Senator Mass, I'd love to talk to you about this after, but I digress. And the second thing is, second read is a fairly exceptional thing, and it breaks the chance for people to read bills. So if you are waiving second read, please do give an explanation. Senator Mass, I know you did that, so thank you so much. That's kind of what I was going to bring up. So yeah, please let me talk. Thanks. Anyway, I'm going to cut short the rest of my comments because a lot of people did talk about that. But please do reach out. A couple of people have reached out already. We have exciting projects coming up. If you have an idea, please talk about it. Talk to people around you about it. Have some concurrence. Bring it up to student initiatives, what have you, because just to piggyback off of what Senator Hurley just brought up, initiative, we need to be outward facing. Initiatives are the most important thing student government does. It's the thing that students are going to see the most. So like things like the height adjustable tables in the library, so many students use that on a daily basis. That was an initiative that was done by student government. Solar lighting, student government initiative. The bylaw bills we pass and stuff, that's not impacting students on a daily basis, but we really need to focus on how we can impact the day-to-day lives of students, because that is our primary responsibility in my mind. And that being said, I know we've done some great work so far. I had to make a list for an engineering student council newsletter just of what we did over the last one. And I was like, well, we're still getting a lot done. Women's Week and stuff, some great stuff that's going on. And let's keep that momentum going as we get across the finish line. I understand it is that time of the semester. It is hard to make time. So thank you everyone for being engaged. It really does matter. And just as a note, I'm always around to help, no matter if it's a bill, resolution, initiative, what have you. If there's any way I, Vice Chair Hayes or anyone on the committee can reduce barriers to change wherever possible. We'd love to help you out. Reach out, email. I'm on my phone a lot. It's kind of a problem. But anyhow, another thing, mark your calendars because tomorrow at 7 p.m. is the Snowden lecture. And just so you know, Senator Young, Senator Hurley, Director Campbell, and yours truly will be part of the panel. That's either asking questions or introducing them. So please do stop by. Fantastic lecture. Also, you can see us talk. So more, yay. And another thing, yeah, the title thing's kind of annoying. I think I'm going to take up VP Schrader on their suggestion to write a bill to delete that. So yeah, that's all. I'm going to yield.
Great. Senator Rinchie.
Sorry, yeah, just a general thing. Let's make sure that when we do, this goes for everyone, when we do our closing announcements, let's please make sure that we don't try and make any broad but pointed comments at anyone else in the room. So I feel it's bordering on the line of that, and I think that we should just be intentional to use these as an opportunity to share and opportunities to get engaged on campus and use these closing announcements as they are originally intended. So thank you, everyone.
All right. So I'll go. I think Senator Hurley is actually writing the bill to get rid of the title. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe he's not, but he is. Great. So that should be good. I wanted to state that we're going to try and have another joint city council meeting with Student Government Senate this month. So we're kind of on a deadline. If you have ideas or issues you would like discussed, you need to email Nicole Whitlock, who's our ex officio, soon, probably by the end of this week, with ideas. We're probably going to have this be a little more structured than our last one. With being online, it's just harder to get engagement and feedback the way we normally run our Senate meetings with 40 people in 2 different legislative bodies trying to meet together. So we're going to have program sections that hopefully will address issues important to students. So it's really important you guys email Nicole if you have something you want to be talking about. I did want to comment on in-person commencement. I think Iowa State is going to lead the way in this, and I imagine a lot of schools are going to backtrack off of their online commencement because we led the way and we step up. And I know I brought it up in every meeting I was in for the past month and a half, and it's just really important to students to have that option, and we're going to figure out how to do it safely. We're not going to make people be there. You're not required to go to commencement in a normal year, but we're going to offer that to our students, and I think that's a really great thing for Iowa State to lead the way on. I'd like to thank Senior Vice President of Student Affairs Younger for really being an advocate for it and making sure that the way students had the opportunity to celebrate and to honor their investment in their education at Iowa State the way most of us dreamed when we started college. And kind of to go to in-person commencement, I think it's really neat that there's a college student member of the legislature. Carter Nordum is a student at the University of Northern Iowa, and he wrote a bill about in-person commencement that got a lot of conversation going at all the 3 schools and set the agenda and really achieved its goals without even having to do anything. And I think it shows the importance of having students in these rooms in the conversation so that student issues can get brought up. Because I know when that bill got introduced, there was a lot of comments of why does the legislature care about this? Well, students care about this. So I think it's important that unless we show up to where we need to be, unless we volunteer, unless we go places, a lot of times the student perspective gets left out of the room. So I want to thank him for that. I want to thank VP Younger. I want to thank everyone who advocated for the in-person commencement option for students. And I'm happy that our university is the one that will figure out how to do it and do it right. So, Vice Speaker Gonzalez.
President Fritz, did you have something to say?
Yes, I just had someone from University Museums email me about some upcoming opportunities that students can participate in. So tomorrow from 4:30 to 6 o'clock p.m. in the Kingland Hub in Jardine, the artist Rose Franson, who is a nationally acclaimed artist who focuses on kind of landscapes and real-life portraits, will be doing an artist talk there. So if you're interested in art, that's going to be a really good opportunity, and I can send some more information with that with my executive update. Additionally, she'll be doing some YouTube live streams of Faces of Iowa State, which will be portraits of various students and faculty around campus. So if those are something you'd be interested in, just look for it in my exec update. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Happy week 6 and happy new March. So just take care of yourselves during this time. The weather is changing and midterm season is coming up. I just want to plug the blood drive next week. That's really exciting. You can save up to 3 lives. And so if you have any questions about how to sign up, please let me know. I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. And then also, if we look at Women's Week tabling, there is quite a few places for you to have the opportunity to sign up and table. So I would just make sure to check that out on the MIS page. As we can see, there's a day for each. There's a time for each day of the week. So just make sure, talking about that public image and talking about that outreach, making sure that we do volunteer for that. And then also I want to plug the vice presidential debate next week. Megan Decker and I will be attending that and being participants in that. So if you want to watch that, that'll be exciting. And then other than that, that should be all. So have a great rest of the week, guys.
Speaker Ludwig.
Howdy. Thank you all for actually a much quicker meeting than what I thought it was going to be. I thought certain bills were going to take longer. We managed to drop a bill and move some stuff around. So really excited that we got as much done as we did. And I think we still had really good discussions on all the bills that we talked about. So thank you for that. Talk to people about elections and running for Senate. I know Commissioner Opie and a couple other people have hit this, but I would prefer a situation where we don't have sub-20 Senate next year. I think there are people out there who are interested in being involved in their community and being leaders in their community. So I'm sure you know some. Just chat with them quick. See if they're interested. Give them the lowdown on student government, how great it is to spend every week with everyone else in this room. And just rep student government a little bit. I think when people find out what they can do here and the impact they can have on their community, they're always excited to join. Lastly, and I think this is really important, no one came to Money versus Power last night but me.
I showed up late.
Schrader showed up late, so it's like 1 asterisk. But the point is this was like the event of the decade. I know it's early in the decade still, but this is clearly going to be the event of the decade. And I mean, I'm just going to be straightforward with you guys. I recorded it, so and President Fritz and Finance Director Klass don't want you to know that, but if you want it,
That's actually like our intellectual property, so.
it's on my.
Order. Let him talk.
Yeah, it's on my phone, so it's my intellectual property. And how intellectual it is. I mean, this is some high class comedy. I know for certain that after President Fritz and Finance Director Klass leave student government, and after they graduate from this university, I know they have a safe career to look forward to. Forget their majors, they're going into comedy. I mean, they were recruited by the Iowa State Comedy Club last night. Unfortunately, they can't make it because the comedy club meets at 7 on Wednesdays. So I guess their commitment to student government still outranks a couple things. But overall, it was a good event. I think it's definitely something we should do more. I want to thank President Fritz and Finance Director Klass for telling some pretty good jokes. If you want a copy of the videos, I'll just send it to you. I might just send it to Senate later. Don't worry about it. But other than that, thank you again for being here. I was really happy with the meeting tonight. With that, go Cyclones. Move to adjourn.
Any objection?
Sure.